cut off the citizens at 3 minutes. So you will not be allowed to speak beyond 3 minutes. It's timed, so once you start speaking, you have 3 minutes, just so that you know. The mic will go dead at that point. We're still learning the new system. It has to be keyed up from up here, so bear with us for the first night. But the test runs ran flawlessly. Let's hope the rest does tonight. So. They're saying that they can't quite hear. Maybe we could turn the volume up just a little. We'll move to two presentations this evening. We have recognition of fire department promotions and recognition of volunteers for the West Jordan Police Department. So if the council would just step down, we'll start first with the recognition from the fire department.
Mayor, the fire department's waiting for one more person that's stuck in traffic, so if we can go, if that's okay.
Let's do it in reverse order.
I thought I broke the system already. The police department has several volunteers that give lots of service to the community and to the police department. They help us out in a number of different ways, from being on, coming out on major incidents with us to helping with some day-to-day tasks that we do. And so we'd like to recognize them. Not all of them are here tonight. They couldn't make it tonight, but I do want to mention their names. So I'll mention first the people that couldn't be here tonight. Jeffrey Baldwin, Georgia Block, David Block, Bonnie Hutchings, Lauren Sison, Shirley Spain, Curtis Spain, Amy Voss, and Braxton Varnes. And so we want to appreciate them for all the work and everything that they did. But I will call up now those that are here and get them. So Roger Davies, if you'll come up. Roger. Roger's relatively new to our agency as a volunteer. He's helped with the Citizens Academy and a bunch of other things for us. So I want to thank him for his hours of work that he's put in. So thank you very much. Sorry. I just got instructions from the photographer, so we'll be good. Nancy Hooten. And again, Nancy's done similar work for us, relatively new, again, as a volunteer, so thank you very much, Nancy, for all your work. You want to just look next, Suzanne Parker. Suzanne, thank you very much for all you do. Thank you. Look right there. Thank you. Lawrence Parker. And again, Lawrence is relatively new. I think you guys just completed our Citizen Academy this time or last cycle?
Last cycle.
Last cycle, okay. Thank you very much. Here we go. Kimberly Sell. Kimberly, oh, there you are. Kimberly's been with us for a while. That's why she has a shirt. And we appreciate her service again, too. Thank you very much. The next one I want to give out, the federal government recognizes volunteers, and this is Volunteer Month, week, and so we appreciate all the volunteers. There are special awards for those that reach certain levels of service hours within the whatever volunteer service that they do. And so we apply for those recognitions and get those. And so I'd like to have Bill Hogue come up. And so the Presidential Award for Volunteer Service, Bill has 410 hours of service to the city. Now, that's volunteer time. He doesn't get compensated for it. He just comes out. He helps us out a lot with our fingerprinting, being up at our front counter. It's just a great service that he provides for us to help us out and make it good. And the Presidential Award is this award here for the number of hours of service. So it's a great award, something little the President has signed a certificate and all that kind of stuff. So thank you very much, Bill, for all you do. We have two other presidential awards, and I'll just mention those. Lori Sysom also has a presidential award, 140 hours of service, and Bonnie Hutchings, who has 101 hours of service. Total number of hours of service is over 1,000 hours of service to the city. And so we want to recognize these great volunteers for all the work that they do for you and for us for free. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and our City Manager, Mr. Pace, for giving us the time tonight to recognize 5 of our individuals. As you know, as I reported in Council meeting, we had 3 retirements last year, and this is the end of that whole process of testing for promotions and making those promotions. And so tonight, we want to recognize those individuals that were promoted. We'll do this in 2 groups. We'll first start with Battalion Chief Darren Montgomery, if he could come up, along with his wife Leslie. And as Darren's walking up, Darren's worked for the fire department for 21 years and 9 years part-time, so he's been with the city for a total of 30 years. Come on this side. He started as a firefighter, was promoted to engineer, and for the last 15 years has served as a captain. Darren received his associate's degree from Sully Community College in Business and received a bachelor's degree from the University of Utah in Organizational Communications. When Darren's off duty, he enjoys playing ice hockey, which he plays for the fire team. He likes snowboarding, boating, traveling, and spending time with his family. His wife, Leslie, will be pinning his badge on tonight. And if anybody, all the family that's here, feel free to come up front as we present Darren with his badge and also his certificate of promotion. So Leslie, I'll let you do the honors of that. If I could have Captain Scott Gerke and his wife Terry come up. Scott has worked with the Western Fire Department for 16 years. He served as an engineer. He's also a member of our hazardous materials team. Scott has an associate's degree in fire science, and an emphasis, and also he has certifications as a fire officer 2, instructor 2, inspector 1, and investigator 1. During Scott's off time, he enjoys golfing, watching his daughter play basketball, motorsports, being outdoors, spending time with his amazing kids. He enjoys spending time with his grandchildren, which he had just recently had. Daughter had 2 twins. They are pretty special to him and his wife, Terry, of 26 years. So with that, Terry, let me give you the hardware. telling him to do two different things. Follow the leader, Scott. All right, our next three promotions, first will be Mike Jensen, who just successfully completed paramedic school. If Mike and his wife Jen can come up. Mike Jensen's a familiar face. He came to the fire department about 8.5 years ago. Prior to that, he worked for our IT department, if you call on that side, right? During that time, he's promoted as an engineer. He's been driving the fire apparatus for the past 3 years. Recently, he successfully completed paramedic school, and I also would note that he was got voted as either the class president or he got to speak during graduation, so he done very well in that program. Mike is also certified as a hazardous material technician as well as a heavy rescue technician. He also has his associate's degree in emergency management and is currently pursuing his bachelor's degree. Mike's joined with his wife Jen tonight, their daughter Abigail, son Logan, and daughter Olivia. In his spare time, Mike loves spending time with his family, playing golf, watching movies, and baseball. And Jen will be pinning his badge on him tonight. You should have it already. I forgot it the first time. I have the rest of our command staff come up and stand over there. All right, the next two promotions are for engineer. These are the individuals that drive the fire apparatus. First one will be Ryan Otley, along with his wife Chelsea, if you could come up. Ryan started with the West Jordan Fire Department in 2013 as a firefighter and just completed his 4 years of service this month. Ryan has a bachelor's degree in human movement science, and off-duty, Ryan likes to spend time biking and spending time in the mountains. His wife Chelsea will pin his badge tonight. Okay, Paul Roberts, you got to get this right. You're the last one as an engineer. Is your wife Jessica here? Yes. Come right up front. Paul Roberts is also no stranger to West Jordan. 5 years ago, he came to work for the fire department, and after working for nearly 16 years, and also Paul's going to have his children come up too, so I forgot to invite them up. Paul's worked for 5 years with the fire department. Prior to firefighting, he was going to school and received a couple of different degrees and also done training in combat sports. We won't ask any more about what that really is. And he served as a West Jordan cemetery sexton, a parks maintenance worker, and a seasonal labor. West Jordan is the city he has grown up in, has been employed since 1999. When he was a sophomore in high school, he's been full-time employed here for the last 16 years. Paul enjoys his time with his family, physical activity, music, and occasional dirt bike ride. Dirt bike. Paul's wife Jessica will be pinning his badge tonight. We do have one other promotion. Captain Joy Stearns, who was promoted to captain with this group, is out of town at a training conference that we sponsored her to go to. So we'll do that at another time. Thank you to all of you that are here and came to support those people that got their promotions tonight. And it's satisfying to know that West Jordan has future leaders, and we're excited as we move forward. Thank you, Council and Mayor, for giving us the opportunity tonight to recognize these people.
We'll move now to communications. City Manager.
Nothing that's not on the agenda, Mayor. Thank you.
City Attorney.
Nothing from the City Attorney's Office. Thank you.
Scott Langford.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Brian Clay.
Just one item. I just want to personally thank all the departments that helped us with the Easter egg hunt. We had a successful event. Appreciate the city manager and the mayor to help us support along with fire police and GIS. We had over 70 volunteers show up to assist, which was a big help in spreading 25,000 eggs. So yeah, it was a great event and we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Bill Piper.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Justin Stoker.
Nothing tonight, Mayor, thank you.
Chief McAree.
I think it's the new system that inadvertently put words in my mouth. I have nothing to report.
Chief Diamond.
Nothing to report except we're the ones who usually go through that.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just participated with the Easter egg hunt, and I thought it was very well organized. I was glad to be able to have my family there. And also, I just wanted to report back that I did work with Sabbath Trail on overnight to just look at railways and welding, and continuing to work on that and push some solutions. And that's what I've got. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Jacob.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Councilmember Nichols.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Councilmember Burton.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to remind everybody that this Saturday is I Love West Jordan Days. So if you haven't already signed up to do some service and help clean up our spring clean, you can still do that. Go to justserve.org and you can sign up right there. And if you want to be with my group, then you go to justserve.org. This line, and you'll see there's two different options there. So choose the one you want. That's this Saturday from 8 o'clock.
We can't hear you back here.
I'm
trying, everyone needs that.
Here, I'll try it again. Right. This Saturday, from 8 a.m. till noon is I Love West Jordan Day. You can sign up by going to justserve.org. That's this Saturday. That's where we clean up West Jordan and do our spring cleaning. So we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. Two items. First up, I want to thank the stormwater crews. About a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, when we had one of the more significant rain events, we didn't have any flooding in my neighborhood, but we did have some concern and water was coming up beyond the sidewalk. They're very, very quick to come out again the next day, making sure everything was taken care of. I've brought up our stormwater crews a few times, but their responsiveness, the focus on customer service, making sure the job gets done, I think for the most part that group is not seen by the bulk of the residents who live here, but they do so much behind the scenes. I really wanted to give them my appreciation for what they've done. Going along with that, I did have a chance to meet a couple of our stormwater inspectors. You'll recall that this is a newer position that was just recently created. Something I learned in short conversation with them is that there's currently a bit of a deficiency in our code where they're not yet able to give citations. I know this is something that's being worked on by legal, and they're going to be coming to us in the near future with some changes to code to allow that. But I just wanted to bring it to the council's attention that we've had some businesses inappropriately dump waste into the stormwater system and discharge into the Jordan River. Our stormwater inspectors have been able to catch that. Previously, I'm assuming it went undiscovered, but very much looking forward to what's brought back so we can help them more fully execute their duties. The last item I wanted to bring up is we are actively working on that grant request for Salt Lake County to help fund a new arts facility. We've got a number of letters of support from the community. I know I've reached out to a number of folks, well, pretty much everybody on the council to help obtain some of those letters. I'll be bringing a letter to the council tomorrow for us to include in our package to the county. But just thank you to everybody for your efforts on that. There are a number of routes that we need to continue to pursue, so I just want to reinforce that while at this particular point in time we're heavily focusing on that grant, there are a lot of routes for funding that we need to be focused on at the same time. So thank you for your work, and please don't forget about the other alternatives that are out there. Thank you, Mayor.
I just wanted to mention the Easter egg hunt too, being longer than a decade since we've had one in this city. For the first year, what a fabulous turnout and what a fabulous Easter egg hunt. And, you know, West Jordan would be nothing without the volunteers that help us. The 70 volunteers set up nice, had it organized, and helped our staff get it done. So great job for the first time. Look forward to it next year. We'll move now to citizens' comments. Anyone here wishing to speak other than we have 2 public hearing items tonight. If you're here to speak on any other subject, now would be the opportunity. Please state your name and address for the record.
1348 West Barton Hollow Drive. I wanted, hopefully, Mr. Powlish, if you could compliment Mr. Chuck Tarver. He's very timely in returning phone calls, very, very good customer service. Someone else in buildings, not so much. Didn't get a return phone call and was very put out by the fact that I was in there asking questions. And then another department that I need to schedule some stuff that I haven't yet to receive a phone call from. So that was my complaint, but Chuck Tarver, thumbs up. On Friday, I was able to share with the mayor and Mr. Brecky some historic items that a group of us found over by Gardner Village. Fortunately, we have true good neighbors with Maverick. They allowed us to go on their property and do some scanning. I showed them a GAR button, which is the Grand Army of the Republic. Unfortunately, we didn't find anything that day that you came out and helped us, Councilmember Burton. Then we found either, it's kind of hard to tell, a 1906 or a 1908 dime. But the one that was the coolest find was a watch fob from the 1889 World's Fair in Paris. It was a Kirkendall and Jones company, and they guaranteed every pair of their school shoes. So at least Maverick cared about our history over there. I can't say so much for another developer who could care less about history, but we do have good neighbors with Maverick, and I was happy that they care about our city, and probably they could probably just quit advertising because I think they're so wonderful. So anyway, have a great day.
Anyone else wishing to address the council during citizens' comments? Seeing no one, I will close the citizens' comments and we'll move to the consent calendar. Councilmember Jacob asked to have item D pulled from the consent agenda. I haven't heard from anyone else, so a motion would be in order. Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the consent calendar minus item D.
Councilmember Burton.
I second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Jacob and a second by Councilmember Burton. Discussion to the motion. Seeing none, let's vote.
Excuse me, Councilmember Burton,
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey,
Aye.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Vote passes 6 in favor.
We will move now to item 7A, public hearing item, receive public input and consider for approval ordinance 17-20 regarding a rezone of 8.25 acres from A5 agricultural 5-acre lots to PO professional office zone for the property located at 1075 and 1150 West, 9000 South. Ryan Engineering. Scott.
Thanks, Mayor. The council may recall about a month ago there was a rezone request in this same neighborhood. During that time, the council moved to table that particular rezone action. There were members of that neighborhood in the audience that night. Following that meeting, they joined together and they filed this new application to rezone a larger area in that same neighborhood. Ray McCandless has the details, and if it's all right, we've got Ray and the applicants also here tonight.
Mayor and members of the council, just to orient you with the site again, I'll be fairly brief on this. It's located at just south of 90th South between 1075 and 1150 West. The property is just a little over 8 acres in size, and it's just outlined here in the red. The property that Scott was talking about is located here. The current, I think there are 10 parcels on the property. They're mainly residential and some agricultural uses on the property itself. The request again is to zone the property from an A5 designation to professional office. It's already designated on the future land use map as professional office. We think this is a fairly straightforward rezoning request. It's consistent with the general plan. This is just the future land use map showing the apartments here at very high density. The land use map is professional office and commercial land use designation further to the west. Again, this is just the zoning map, currently zoned A5, zone it to professional office. And then the applicant did provide us with a concept site plan, just showing what a potential use of the property would be. We think that it provides, that it's, again, consistent with the future land use map. It's a gateway to the city. It provides a logical transition between those residential uses to the east and then the future commercial uses that are to the west. It also provides a buffer between 90th South and then the residential development to the south. So with that, our recommendation is for approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions from council? I don't see any, right? Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll now open the public hearing for item 7A. If you're here to speak on this item, now would be the opportunity. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing of item 7A and return to the council for discussion and/or motion. Councilmember Anderson.
Yeah, I just had a question related to the parcel that's not being, not part of the rezone. Is that going to be an issue in the future? I mean, if they decide to sell or want to do something else, or?
Our recommendation last time it came through was not to approve. I think there was a rezoning request to change it to an R112, a single-family residential zone. Our recommendation was not in favor of doing that, simply because it would leave an isolated island. But there's nothing to say that somebody in the future, it's still zoned agricultural, which we consider a holding zone. So if somebody else were to come down the line and purchase the property, it could be rezoned at that time and integrated with this site.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Burton. Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a good plan for this location, and I would be in favor of seeing this happen. And if there's no further discussion, I would make a motion. That would be in order. Okay. I move that based on the information and findings set forth in this staff report upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the City Council approve ordinance 17-20 rezoning upon 8.25 acres of land generally located from 1075 through 1050 west, 9,000 south, from A5 to PO zone.
We have a motion by Councilmember Burton.
Second.
We have a second by Councilmember Jacob. Discussion to the motion? Let's vote.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe.
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yes.
Councilmember Burton.
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
The vote passes 6 in favor.
Public hearing item 7B, receive public input and consider for approval ordinance 17-21 regarding a preliminary development plan, PC zone, for property located at 7800 South Highway U-111, Holmes Home, Patrick H. Holmes applicant. Scott?
Thanks, Mayor. This should be very familiar to the City Council. This is the kind of the final step to ratify the density. This is establishing the master plan for this area. The applicant's here for presentation if you have specific questions, but I'll turn it over to Ray to address the summary of the staff report.
Ray?
Thank you. I think that most of you have seen this before, the preliminary, the concept site plan when it came through for a rezoning request, and so I won't spend a lot of time on it. This is the concept plan that was included in your packets. Just to reorient with the site, we can hit the right button first. There's this is a commercial 10-acre piece of property that's here. The dividing line between the land uses on the future land use map is just actually here. It's a little faint. You can see it here. The larger lots are located on the west side, smaller lots that are located on the east side. This is U-111 here and 7800 South. The Sycamores development would be further to the south here. As Scott mentioned, the applicants are here this evening just requesting formal approval of the preliminary development plan, which is just the next step in the sequence for developing the property. In looking at when the applicants initially came through, they went through a couple of meetings with the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission looked at a couple of different concept plans, and that concept plan was forwarded to the City Council along with that rezoning request. And in comparing this plan with the one that you'd seen previously, there just aren't that many changes, basically with a couple of changes to the lots along this area right here. There was an addition of an area that was shown for a future water tank up here on the farthest west side. As we mentioned in the rezoning application, or when we went through the rezoning, is that the property can be serviced with some off-site improvements, but there are about 20 lots that are up here on the farthest west side where there'll have to be another water tank placed somewhere else on the property. There's going to be quite some time before all phases develop. but this is something that the applicant is fully aware of, and those lots can't be developed until those services are provided. But like I say, it's just those upper 20 lots that are in a different zone. The concept plan shows 117 lots that are over 10,000 square feet. I think there are 45 lots between 8,000 and 10,000 square feet. 61 lots between 6 and 7, and then there are 99 lots between 5 and 6,000 square feet. There are also some garden lots that are located right here, and I think there's some other ones, with an average lot size of 4,511. So overall, the net density, and this is one of the things that you'll be approving as part of the preliminary development plan, is the density for the project. Overall, the net density of the project is 3.5 dwelling units per acre, and what that lands is developing in the medium density range in the general plan. The west half, as I pointed out earlier, the density of that section alone is 1.9 dwelling units per acre, which is considered low-density residential in the general plan. And then on the east half, the development is at 5.0 dwelling units per acre, which is in the medium density residential category. This slide just shows those densities there. This is the phasing plan. I think one of the things that we've heard in previous meetings was that when developers come in, there's a lot of the amenities, or recreational amenities, are developed at the tail end of the development as far as the phase. But in this case, what they're looking at doing is developing phase 1, which is kind of in the center of the project. But as you can see, this is a soccer field that will be developed as part of that. So there will be some amenity that will then be included with that first phase. Access to the site will be here off of 78th. There will be this is a little weird, but it's actually just going to be a temporary access, or temporary emergency vehicle access to U-111. That'll go away when phases 3 and 4 are developed out. There's 21 acres of open space, which meets the 15% open space requirement of the Planned Community Zoning District. There's a number of different recreation areas. As I mentioned earlier, there's a 2.9 acre park that's located here. This is going to be an 11.9 acre community park, and I think there's going to be some lawn area. There'll be a little gazebo here, and then there'll also be a small neighborhood park with a swimming pool, change room, restrooms, that's further to the east. Further to the west. Also be a church site on the property. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there would be commercial property on the northwest corner of U-111 and 7800 South. This will be a landscaped area. It kind of drops off. There's quite a slope there, but it provides a good transition between that commercial area and those residential lots to the north. So it'll be good pedestrian access, good connection through this. However, we think that this, as I had mentioned before, this has gone through a couple of iterations of the Planning Commission. They've come back, and the Planning Commission ultimately voted to recommend approval of this preliminary development plan. They thought that the densities that were provided were appropriate for the site. There's a real mix of different kinds of uses. A lot of the homes are going to be alley loaded, so the garages are accessed from alleys. So we think that overall this is going to be a good addition to the community. We've included with your preliminary development plan some examples of the houses that will be built on the property. So our recommendation is for approval of the preliminary development plan. So with that, I'd just open up for any questions you have.
Questions from council? Councilmember Jake.
Thank you, Mayor. Ray, could you go back to the slide with the phasing plan on it?
Sure.
Thank you. My question is about the access, as far as this goes. Is that road to the west planning to hook up to anything once everything's completed?
This here?
Yeah.
No, there's a rail line that comes here. That, I think what'll happen is that will service future properties that are further to the west. That's the intent of that. 7800 South gradually gets smaller and smaller as it goes to the west, but the intent is to connect that in at some point in the future.
Right. So my question then comes in with, does this neighborhood not have only one access point? The whole thing, to 7800 South?
No, there are actually a number of different accesses to 7800 South. There's one here, here,
I mean,
here,
from
here.
7800 South to Backus Highway is the only
It will,
access point for the whole neighborhood.
it will be until the area to the north develops. As you can see up here, that there are stub streets that are located here that cross that rail line. So the primary access will be here, and then this will be the emergency access until such time as these other linkages are connected.
So I'm worried about the two ingress rule, you know, as far as the neighborhood goes. If there's a major accident, say, for South and U-111, you know, the intersection's closed down, so the helicopter can, these people get home or late.
Yeah. Like I said, well, again, this is what they're proposing.
But
It's just-
after that is closed down, I mean, the whole development's done, there's only one out. You said that emergency access that would go away when phases 3 and 4 are developed.
Right.
After that, I mean, when the whole thing is done, there's only one out.
There will be, and that, you're talking about this intersection here, right?
Yeah, well, then the one to the east of that, 78th and U-111, right?
Yeah. This is, yeah, this will be the only access, the only vehicle access for the residents until those other connections are made.
Okay, so how does that meet fire code then with a couple of hundred units going in here and one access? Does that help if I turn off?
There we go, all right. So this may clarify, Councilman Jacob, as part of phase 1, I don't know if you can see this arrow, they will be installing this access. This will, phase 4, as that goes in, there will still be an access for emergency vehicles out to U-111 at that point. So it does meet fire code as far as providing emergency access. Now, to your point, if something were to happen at that intersection, or I guess at this roundabout, that would make ingress and egress for the regular citizen complicated for a time, but to meet the requirements of 2 points of access for emergency vehicles, it will meet that for phase 1 and for all the phases.
Okay, so
Chief McElroy has a comment.
No, I didn't. I don't have anything to add, unless you have a question for me, I didn't push my button.
No, I didn't.
Councilmember Jacob.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I was concerned about not having two access points here. Yeah, that roundabout where it's compromised at the main intersection there. Not realizing that I guess there will be a new little road in phase 4 permanently then for emergency access. Okay, that still seems like a lot of traffic going out one intersection. Now, it's a roundabout, so I know it can handle it. These roundabouts are best intersections ever. But, I say that in all seriousness, come on. But it still concerns me that there's only one access point here for such a large development as it were. And it's a good development, I really like it, I'm just very much concerned with the one. I know there's the gully on the south side of the rest of it that you can't exactly cross very easily, so I'm not sure what the right solution is, but I guess this is it. Thanks.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yeah, just a couple questions as I was reading back. Number one, if you back up a couple slides in zone 8, or maybe it's not backwards, maybe it's forwards, that'll propose possible water tank, that one. There on the left side of the screen. So is that something, that's just for a potential site, is that something that's being considered? Would it be below ground, above ground? How is the slope there with the residents, for one? And then my second question, Justin, would be there's areas where the slope exceeds 30%. And being that it's a gravel use, is there potential for some sloughing off of material in rainy weather when we have excessive water? So those would be my two questions. The 30%, the areas that are greater than the 30% slope, and the potential water tank.
Councilmember Sweeney.
Justice Jordan. To answer your first question, the water tank up there is not meant to serve the neighborhood. There's another tank that's a little further west we call our bench reservoir that would serve this area. The tank that you see on the far side of this property would serve what we call Zone 6 or Zone 5, which is further down, meant to provide redundancy to neighbors more than anything. We would need our Zone 7 tank to be able to service the final phases of this development, which would be further uphill, even up above their bench reservoir. To answer your other question about the grade, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but I don't think there's any construction can happen on any grades that are greater than 3 to 1. And so there would have to be some regrading to even construct on that property to be able to level off the property. And there's things you can do to be able to mitigate against storm runoff from downhill.
That is correct. The code does not allow for any construction on grades that steep. You can see this map is the slope analysis for the property, and the red would be grades over 30%. You've got that area next to where that water tank was being discussed, and then their kind of their amphitheater open space park. Again, they can't touch that. So there won't be any homes near there. It will be separated from a road, I guess, except for this area to the far west. You will have some steep slopes coming down to the south. But I don't know. I'd have to defer to the engineers about slope stability and those types of things.
So in the packet, what it says is there are some areas where the slope exceeds 30%. However, these areas are within proposed open space. So I did clarify that, I guess. I know you can't build anything stupid than the 3 to 1, but are these open spaces going to be stable enough between the commercial space and the residential space if they're in excess of 3 to 1? And then I'll have one more question.
Are you talking about landscaping on 3 to 1 slopes? Typically, a 3 to 1 slope is okay for lawnmowers. It's about as high as you want to go, but a 3 to 1 slope is okay for lawnmowers.
I'm just thinking of the steepness of the slope, even on an open space, whether it's rolling, just maybe sloughing off of this greater than 3 to 1.
Oh, no, that should be fine. Sloughing usually won't happen until you're at a 2 to 1 or 1 to 1 depending on the soils. 3 to 1's okay. Especially with plant material. You're okay.
And then my last question is the rail line. That's something that I'm dealing with the neighborhood right now, where the house is back the rail line, and the rail I don't believe is out of that space, and so whether it's dormant or not, the potential is there for more trains rather than people's backyards. So I don't know how active that line is. I've been dealing with Welby and Way and Saventura.
This particular rail line So the Wellbeing line that we're familiar with, it's over by 40th West, is owned by Union Pacific and leased to Savage Railways, and is an active line that has UTA trim, using many of the other lines. The line that's up here, this is the Garfield line that's owned exclusively by Kennecott and is used only by Kennecott. And I don't believe it's active. If it is, it's rare, extremely rare that we still put trains on those rails.
But it could be something.
It could, but my understanding is it's a narrow line and I haven't really used it myself. And it's owned by Kennecott, so nobody else can use it.
Did the applicant want to speak?
My name is Mike Kelly. I'm the land planner on the project working for Holmes Homes. We'd just like to point out that we've been here for a couple of years working on this, and we've had a lot of input from the staff and from the Planning Commission, and we've been here before you once to get a general plan amendment and zoning change. We have received a lot of input as we've worked through this project, and we've tried to be responsive to all the comments that we've received from everyone. And we think we have a good plan that has resulted from that input that we've received in the cooperation that we've had between us and staff and the Planning Commission especially. So we thank you for your consideration, the work that has gone into this project thus far over the last couple of years and where we're at. Do you have any questions for us?
Questions from the applicant? I think you're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now open the public hearing for item 7B. If you're here for a discussion on this item, now would be the opportunity. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Matthew Smith.
I live at 6676 West Brook Maple Way. I had a couple of questions and concerns about this development. One was the single entrance, and I think my questions have been answered, except the fact that you've got the emergency access on the side. I'm wondering if UDOT has been consulted. I know that they are pretty insistent on where the accesses are to U111, and I can just imagine people stopping in the middle of the road to try to turn left or right into that area and blocking traffic on 111. That could be a potential problem. Also, a concern that I had is I noticed that in the paperwork the commercial phase is listed as being developed last, and in the timeline that's 9 years away. That's an awfully long time. And in my experience, if somebody says they're going to do something in 9 years, it doesn't happen. Especially with the Jordan Hills Villages development. Over several years, over 10 years, they developed a whole bunch of neighborhoods and houses. The last phase was the commercial phase, and they stated that they were not able to find a large grocery store tenant to go in their commercial phase during the recession, and so there are going to be houses there. And so I want some assurance that this commercial phase will be a commercial phase. So I would ask the developer if they could complete the commercial phase first. This will do a couple of things. It'll be a gesture of goodwill to the thousands of existing neighborhoods that will use that commercial area. And it will also be a selling point to sell these homes faster, so that people can know that they can quickly pick up dinner on the way home from work or walk to a store where they can buy something that they need. I'd also like to ask the City Council to include that condition, that the commercial phase be developed first in any motion today. I also have a concern. The builder for this development will be Holmes Homes, and they've been in the news recently with Daybreak, and I know that they can't probably discuss that at this meeting, but I want some assurance that we will have good quality homes in West Jordan and that the quality of the homes have improved over the last 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Please.
Steve Jones, 3234 West, 6920 South. The only thing that I can see on there is in a nutshell, and it could be just a scaling issue, but I look at that roundabout and it looks totally inadequate to me. Again, I work in an area that uses roundabouts and they seem to work, but if you're going to bring in a 4-lane road, you're going to basically have that same width all the way around the roundabout and continuing out. Otherwise, you just created a bottleneck. So to me, it looks like everything that's west and north and south of that roundabout, in my opinion, is inadequate with what the future would entail. And I would hope that the city of West Jordan would put, since 7800 South is a major artery and one of our few arteries in West Jordan, that we would have a total build-out to be able to, as things get developed and further up the mountain and further to the south, that you're not going to have to go in and tear that roundabout out to put in one that's adequate to handle the traffic. There's a lot of homes in there and very limited access, and I don't see that as necessarily a good part of the design. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing item 7B and return to the council for discussion and motion. Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. One thought that I had, and staff might want to address this, on that commercial space in the corner, when that Jordan Hills Villages commercial space was being rezoned here 3-4 months ago for that denser single-family residential neighborhood, we were told that 10 to 15 acre commercial corners don't work anymore. That was one of the reasons why we had to pare that one down to 2.5 acres or whatever it was for the commercial for a very tiny little strip mall, maybe a bank and a fast food place or something. Yet here we are proposing one, and so if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, like Mr. Smith said. If this is, if it doesn't work on the corner, kitty corner from this corner, why is it going to work on this corner? And what, as far as the concept plan goes, I was thinking about that earlier. It shows a little strip mall with a fairly larger corner anchor tenant there. I just wonder what the size of that, that's not a grocery store size anchor tenant there. It's got to be smaller than that, I would think, based on just the pictures. Now, granted, this is a rendering, not a scaled architectural plan, but I just wonder what the potential is for that corner if it didn't work on the opposite corner.
I believe that large box in the upper right-hand corner of that section is probably a grocery store or some kind of large box. Of course, it's just concept. They have to find a tenant, but it appears like they've set up for some large box to be in that development. I guess, is there any different than that, Ray or Scott?
Well, the applicant can probably talk about the general concept of that site, but from a planning perspective, it is important to still maintain some commercial nodes. Just because the kitty corner couldn't make a go of it doesn't mean at the build out of this development that they wouldn't need commercial services. It's not a huge draw, but you're going to have a lot of people living in this area, and I think it's wise planning to allow for that. And if in 10 years the way we shop is different, then the council at that time would have the discretion to go back and amend this plan. But for the time being, from our department, I think it is wise to keep this commercial corner.
Scott, one question. I thought once you approve a concept plan on a PC zone, it has to be ratified and built, not to the preliminary plan, of course, but that was part of the whole preliminary zone, the PC zone. Sorry, Chief McElreath.
No, I'll let you finish.
You should be free to go now.
Okay, we're working this out. Yes, Mayor, you are correct. With approval of this preliminary development plan tonight, the plan as presented is adopted by the council through ordinance, which includes the layouts, the housing type, in concept, the commercial area. As soon as they if they were to land an anchor and develop that commercial site, they would have to go through and get site plan approval. But to deviate from the plan presented to the council tonight, they would need council approval to do that.
Chief McElreath, did you have a comment?
I know the emergency access thing was just hanging out there. I'd like to just comment so that we can wrap that up and speak to Councilmember Jacobs' comment. I have exchanged some emails with our deputy fire marshal. They have reviewed that. It does meet the fire code for emergency access. They've worked with the developer and putting those accesses in. Now, obviously, codes can exceed or meet, but it does meet the two accesses the way that it's designed there. So just to put that out that it.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. Question about that for you, Chief. How will that access, or do you know how that access will be controlled? I know in other neighborhoods where there's been space between houses that isn't even meant as a road, people are concerned about criminal activity and an easy getaway kind of a thing, or things like that where your normal cars can't get through necessarily. How is that access controlled, or how is it differentiated? How do you keep residents from driving out that way? That kind of thing.
Good question. And my understanding is the emergency access that showed on that map that went out to U-111 would have to get the approval from UDOT to get to U-111, which I assume is in the packet and been done. How that will be blocked off will either be bollards or some type of a gate that we would have access to. Now, the road itself, you're correct. Sometimes those do become places for cars to be parked, neighborhoods to use it. But that's one of the downsides of using that. I mean, obviously, there will be signage and those type of things there, but there is a possibility of that turning into something like that.
I just had one comment. The only concern I have with this plan is I've been working with the Commissioner Bittner on a crossover into Tooele County, and of course they've looked at Butterfield Canyon, which is very steep and would be very hard to construct, but Barney's Canyon is the least grade over into Tooele County, so having that road neck down at that, well, even having a roundabout on there could be, it's a concern for me if in fact over the next decade we do build there's a long ways till it's done, but we're working with all the cities on the west side and the Tooele County Commission to get that, because there's no way to get to Tooele County if there's an accident on I-80 except for a 100-mile round trip south and west and then back north. So, east and then back north. So that's the only thing I see on the plan that's a concern for me. And that's not even, I mean, it's just a proposal at this point, and it could go up Butterfield, but I'm concerned that I would like it to come into 7800 South into West Jordan is what I could see in the future. Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I wholeheartedly echo that concern. Looking at the west side of the valley, I can imagine the day where we've got Mountain View corridor patching through to 201 to I-80. We have that freeway access there, and then having another freeway access to patch through to Willow County. That would make this a very, very significant corridor and very important for the city. So one of the things I'm also concerned about with that roundabout, as was brought up earlier, if we approve this preliminary development plan, are we also giving approval for construction of a roundabout at that intersection?
Yeah, shut off, Chris, thanks.
I'm aware that there's at this time, there's some discussion about the council's involvement with roundabouts, and maybe I'll defer to Justin about that, but the intersection improvements, that could be flexible. I mean, right now the roundabout is taking up more real estate than a normal intersection would have to, and so, you know, if it was shown as a regular intersection and the council wanted a roundabout, that might shift some of their design. To go from a roundabout to a regular intersection would be less impactful. So I'll forfeit the mic and give it over to Jeff.
I'll jump in first and say I think that answered my question. So my new question would be, I think I'm in favor of this, but my question would be, could we have a motion that specifically excludes the design for that intersection from the preliminary development plan, and then be able to proceed with the rest and then revisit or visit this aspect later?
Councilmember Burton, would you allow Scott to answer that question? Please, Scott.
Certainly that's an acceptable condition that you could put on. Yep.
And the city owns the property to the south, so we could always widen that road should this agreement between Tooele County and Salt Lake County work out.
Correct. And to follow up, if the council wishes, the meeting at the end of May, we could have somebody at that meeting that could take maybe 5 minutes and give us an update on those studies. I attended a meeting last week where they were weighing the different options, Butterfield versus Barney's, and if the council wants, we could have somebody at the meeting to talk about that.
Yeah, they'd be preliminary, but at least we could.
It's a long ways out, but yeah, okay.
Excuse me, Justin Stoker.
Just to answer the question really quick about the roundabout versus traffic signal in there. One of the benefits of at least reserving the right-of-way for a roundabout is roundabouts can go in immediately where traffic signals require certain warrants be met before you can put in traffic signals. Traffic signals take up less space than roundabouts do, so you could put a roundabout in now and then convert that to a traffic signal later for without having to take additional right-of-way or property, whereas if you were to not keep the right-of-way for the roundabout, you can't go the other direction. You can't go from a signal to a roundabout as easy as you can go from a roundabout to a signal. So whether or not a roundabout's the way to go, it's wise to at least preserve the property there for the roundabout if that's the desire.
Councilmember Burton.
Thank you, Mayor. And I agree. I think if that 78 situation does work out, then we can just widen that road by going to the south because we have some room for that. So with all that, and I think we've answered most of the questions, and I'm pleased with Holmes Homes, the way they've been accommodating and working with staff and taking their advice and coming back and meeting and all the requirements that have been proposed. So thank you for being so accommodating for the city and the staff. So I would like to go ahead and make a motion based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanation received today. I move the City Council approve the preliminary development plan and residential densities contained within the Oker West planned development generally located on the northwest corner of 7800 South and U-111 and preserve the sufficient property for a roundabout, whether or not that goes in.
We have a motion, Councilmember Burton. Councilmember Anderson?
So I'm going to second that, just so we can have some discussion.
We have a motion by Councilmember Burton, a second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion to the motion. Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. So to clarify, the motion is keeping the property for the roundabout, but does it exclude the design of that intersection as part of the preliminary development plan?
Councilmember Burton.
Yes.
Your second's okay?
My second is okay.
Any discussion as to the motion? Councilmember Nichols.
I'm finding this new system a little comical. I'm sure you all are too. Just so you all know what's going on, the mayor can speak at any time and only one other person at a time. So we kind of have to figure out. And it says who's talking, but that person's not looking. You kind of have to figure it out. So thank you, Mayor, for the floor. My comment is, let's talk about the roundabout a little bit. I don't want to hinge this whole thing around the roundabout. I just want to make sure that my point is heard. For me, the roundabout at 7800 South and the one that exists right now, that's not too far from where I live, 5600 West in that area, it's just not sufficient. It might meet design standards. It's just not sufficient. I'm just telling you, it's just not sufficient. So that's where you're seeing a lot of concern up here, is specifically from that intersection. Now, it would be ridiculous to hinge the success or failure of this on that. So I just want the developer to understand where this is all coming from. Now, that being said, I want to make sure that if we put a roundabout here, that it's adequate. And it has to be thought about throughput, who's coming through here. The mayor brought up a fantastic point, but right now it's kind of conjecture. But there is a possibility this could be a thoroughfare someday. Are we planning for 4 lanes or 5 lanes or just 2? That's a question I have on the back of my mind. I don't think it would be appropriate to plan for 5 per se, because it's just literally at this point conjecture. It's a thought. So I wouldn't want to hinge it on that as well, but that's something that the developer needs to keep in mind as well as we progress, because even the success of this over 10 years could be ramped up dramatically if that was to come to fruition. Going back to the commercial piece that Mr. Smith brought up, I don't know if I'm willing to say that we have to put it number 1, but I agree in principle with what he's saying and the fact that what happened on the southeast corner of the same intersection, this might be a little bit different in that we're now going to back it up with a lot more homes than what exists today. But in theory, that's what that southeast section was supposed to be. That southeast corner was supposed to be developed because of all the homes that were coming in around it. Now, the development did come. We see a Chevron out there, Holly Oil. We see the Smiths. We now see a Maverick. I mean, it's coming, but it's just not nearly as quickly as we thought for the number of homes that are there. So that is a concern. I would love to see it number 1. And if the developer would so choose to move that up in priority, I would definitely welcome that kind of thought. One other concern that hasn't been discussed yet, it was mentioned, is the alley access. I don't know where I am on this. I'm kind of neutral. I don't know if alley access is better or not. I think I'd have to live in an environment where I have one to make a judgment on that. It's just I throw that out there as a comment. I'm kind of neutral on it, so I could probably take it or leave it. But I know in the development just to the south of this, one of the significant problems we have is that the driveways were just too short. Someone drives a pickup into the driveway and leaves it in the driveway. It invades in that space, the sidewalk, and in some cases even into the street. So I think this concept will address that, and maybe we could invite the developer potentially to address that here, or an engineer, somebody in staff perhaps that could address that. But that's, anyway, it's just a concern. I don't know really per se if I'm going to 100% support this or not yet, the motion. I'm just kind of thinking through these thoughts, but thank you.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in much the same place as Councilmember Nichols. I voted for this concept, or this rezone with the concept plan a couple of months ago because I like the direction that this is going. I just think there's some details that need to be worked out, and I would like to think that the staff will handle those as the red lines come through and as the development plans come through. But yeah, there are a couple of concerns with the commercial corner remaining commercial. Because if a grocery store doesn't work 1.4 miles from the Smiths that went in, it's not going to work 1.42 miles from the Smiths that went in. If that's a legitimate concern, and the council decided when we rezoned that property to allow for those residences to go in on the opposite corner, that was legitimate, and that was a legitimate reason for I'll say de-zoning the commercial there, then I don't see how this one is going to be any different, and that concerns me. That said, I also don't necessarily want to hold the whole project up based on that, because I still believe that could work. I believe the council got it wrong. I voted against it when we rezoned that property. So I'd like to think it could work. However, you know, if we're going to set it wasn't really a policy decision, but if we're going to base our zoning decisions based on you know, feasibility of retail, then we should at least be consistent. And I'm not saying I want to get rid of this commercial zone by any means. I don't. In fact, I'd like to see it twice the size. I'd like to see the whole neighborhood immediately west of this also commercial. Again, if this becomes a thoroughfare, that would make sense. However, yeah, I don't know that I want to hold the whole project hostage to that either. So I'm in much the same place where I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to fall on this. Thanks.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I kind of wish I could take a highlighter and hit some of the comments that have been made. There have been some really good comments that I wholeheartedly agree with. Since those comments have already been made, I'll skip over those and just add a couple little clarifying points. I was in favor of downsizing the commercial previously. I am in favor of keeping the commercial here. That may sound inconsistent, but it's not. The reason being is I'm not just looking at size, but I'm also looking at location. In a prior life, in another job, I worked as a business analyst trying to determine location for various retail facilities. And for the restaurants, for the fast serve restaurants, one of the things that you're looking for is you want to be on the going home side of the street. So in this case, when you're looking at this particular property, most of the traffic is going to be coming westbound, so they're going to be on the north side of the street. So a commercial property on the north side has far better chance of success than a property on the south side, as that's the going to work side of the street. If you want to do a gas station or something like that, you want to be on the going to work side of the street. But retail, like commercial, grocery, things like that, you want to be on the coming home side. Plus, where you've got the right turn coming up into the neighborhood, I think that's about the right size for this neighborhood right here. So it may sound inconsistent that I'm supportive of this one, but I wasn't previously, but it's because of that going home side of the street concept. I really do think this will have much better chances of success here. There's a couple other points, but they're all minor and kind of belabor some of the comments that have already been made. So I'll just voice my support for the motion. With that given clarity that I think it was stated earlier, preserve the sufficient roundabout whether or not becomes installed. I would like to see a little more clarity to the motion itself, saying that the particular design of the intersection is not decided or not included in the approval, but I'm happy proceeding with the direction we're going. Thank you.
I would like to state that for the very reasons you just stated, that I believe this will work as a commercial area. And also the rooftops, that because of Kitty Corner across the street and this particular project, I believe it will support this type of commercial, where the other, there wouldn't be enough density to support it. So I will be in support of this particular planned community, and let's vote.
Sorry. Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe.
Yes.
Councilmember Burton.
Yes.
Vote passes 6 in favor.
Not as part of this vote that we just took, but I'm really hoping that Homes will put monument signs on this so that it actually, all these projects on the west side of the U-111, because that is some of the best real estate we have, I hope that they'll put monument signs identifying that this is Okra West, so that in the future, people will be able to identify each of these developments as they come in with a name, rather than just a general west side of West Jordan. We can't force that, but if you take that suggestion back, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. We'll move to business item 8A, presentation of the city manager proposed budget for fiscal year 2017-2018. City manager?
Thank you, Mayor. This is, according to our budget calendar, this is the time when I give you the proposed budget for fiscal year 2017-2018, basically July through June of the following year. You should have in front of you copies of the slides that we'll be presenting that gives you the basis of our formulating the budget. And then next to that are the cover pages of each fund, giving you the revenues and expenditures, and see that each one is balanced. The total budget with all the detail, which is quite lengthy, is available online as we speak. So starting tomorrow, if you want to ask questions, we can do that. So on revenues, does it work? Okay. We're looking at an increase in revenues about 5.2% in the general fund. We have charges that you'll see that come from different funds. We don't have the exact figures now, but basically they null themselves out. One shows a departure from one fund, goes to be expended in the other fund. So don't be concerned if they change later on during the 3 or 6 or so weeks that the council will be deliberating this. Next. They're not doing it? Okay. On the expenditure side, we're looking at a 3.3% increase over the last year. This provides for step increases for those who are non-public safety employees of 2.75, and that's built into the structure of the personnel rate schedule. The police officers have a 5% step increase built in. The budget also provides for a 2% cost of living adjustment for all funds. And we started out with a medical insurance premium of about 12 to 14%, and we've gotten that down to 9.5%. The positions that are added, there are not a lot of them, but I believe everyone that the council felt strongly about during the workshop session that we had. We are adding 2 part-time city prosecutors, a budget coordinator for police. It's basically an upgrade for a current position. 4 police officers, because we're getting a 3-year grant that's de-escalating each year, so at the end of the 3 years, we'll be paying for full for the 4 positions. A communications specialist for media, and then the deputy city manager position. As you'll see in each of these sheets, especially the general fund, ongoing items on the green sheets, we added $609,000. One-time only items are 1.3 for a total of 1.9 coming out of the general fund reserve. We also are taking $449,000 from the fleet fund to provide for vehicles in the general fund. We'll be paying cash for those because most of them will last more than 3 years. They'll be 8 to 10 years on trucks. This is the page for the general fund, and as you see at the bottom, you'll see the use of green sheet one-time items, and then also equipment items, which basically that amount coming from the fleet fund, and then also the restricted use of Class C road funds. and you'll see the balance is at $61 million, almost $62 million. This is a balanced budget in that all O&M expenses, and in other words, the daily operations of any fund, are not any greater than the funds coming in. There's no borrowing on that from the reserve fund. The only things we borrow from are for capital items. Like I said, the full budget is available immediately. If you have any questions in the next 2 weeks, the following council meeting, we'll have adopted officially, which then becomes your budget to use and change as you see fit. Staff is available at any time to answer questions because it is a lengthy budget, but most of you have been through it before. So, are there any questions at this point?
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm seeing online, if you go to the Finance Department, I'm seeing a 290-page budget book. But this short little, the few slides that you just run through, kind of the quick overview, is that going to be made available as well? That would be very appreciated. If we could go back to the agenda and attach it with that item so folks who are maybe listening to the meeting later can have a way to find that. I think they'd find that little overview much more helpful before diving into 290 pages worth of numbers. So, thank you.
I just applaud you. For the first time in 4 years, I may be able to vote in favor of a budget. It's not deficit. It's not a deficit budget, and I appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions? We'll move now to item 8B, discussion and possible action regarding Resolution 17-30, considering the proposed changes to sewer residential fee structure and other billing items. Bill?
Thanks, Mayor. We have some proposed changes to the residential sewer fee structure and other billing items. And just to let you know, these are all revenue neutral. We're just trying to be more efficient and really make the administration of the utility billing much easier. And so in our hopes of not increasing staff to administer utility billing. Currently, multifamily units are being billed at flat amount, but on residential units, there's a fixed component of $16.19, and then a volume usage of $1.50 per 1,000 gallons capped at wintertime usage. So basically, we're going back to the wintertime water usage and calculating the residential sewer charges for residential units. What we're proposing tonight is for residential customers to be billed at a flat monthly fee for sewer usage, and commercial customers would continue to be billed based on their usage. And some of the reasons for the changes, as you can look at the chart up here, for many of the municipalities surrounding us, especially in the South Valley, you look at South Valley, South Jordan, Riverton, Harriman, Bluffdale, Draper, West Valley, Magna. Many of the areas surrounding us are billing sewer usage based for residential customers on a flat monthly amount. Also Provo and Ogden and some other jurisdictions, but many of the areas that are surrounding us are billing on a flat monthly amount. Some of the reasons for this change, it's much easier to understand. We have several customers that are asking us, based on this wintertime usage when they come and try and understand that. We feel like a flat monthly amount would be much easier to understand. The change would result in the same amount of revenue, be revenue neutral, and it would simplify the billing for the sewer services. Especially right now, we have many meters that are failing because of the length of time they've been in the ground. That usage for wintertime usage needs to be transferred from the old meter to the new meter. And a lot of manual entry, and if we were to switch to a flat monthly amount, it would just be much easier to administer and less time for staff time to track and fewer billing errors, and really to utilize the capabilities of the Tyler Munis billing software that we've implemented this year more efficiently. Some of the other changes we are proposing is that when there's an additional green waste can, they're being billed over a flat amount over a 12-month period. We're proposing to bill over a 12-month period. Currently, they're being added in the spring and taken off in the summer. So we're essentially billing for 7 months, putting them on, taking them off. What we're proposing is to, for those additional green cans, is to spread that cost over 12 months. And so we don't have the additional charges on and then coming off, on in the spring and then coming off in the fall. And the current software does not have the capability to do equal pay. It does a rolling 12-month period, but the rolling 12 it gives a number that is different every month, and it's not what customers are looking for. And so we're just saying that eliminating equal pay will cause less confusion and therefore cause less calls and confusion for residents. And the proposed fee would be approximately $24 per month, and as previously adopted on July 1st, it would increase 7.5%, and so we would just bill a flat monthly amount, starting July 1st is what we're proposing. And then the fee for the additional green cans would change from $4.93 per month for 7 months to $2.88 for 12 months. And just to kind of summarize, these changes would make a huge difference as far as the time required to administer utility billing, and would allow us to do it with the current amount of staff and not additional staff. So appreciate your support on this. That's all I had.
Questions from council? Councilmember Burton.
Thank you, Mayor. And I appreciate you taking a look at this and doing this. And for the green waste, changing it to 12 months, even though they don't have green waste collected all 12 months, I don't think that's a problem, and this comes out the same, so I think that's fine. And I can see your desire to change the sewer fee to make it a flat rate. I can see how that would decrease some work that would be required on staff. But in my mind, I look at a fee as something that we have control over. And if we make it the same fee all across the board, regardless of how much you use or don't use, then it's not really something we have control over, and then it transfers from a fee to a tax. So I would be willing to support that if we took it off the bill and didn't call it a fee, but we paid for it out of our general fund and put it in there. Now I realize that would do some adjusting to the budget that was just presented and proposed, and I know it's not a large dollar amount, but it's the idea that we're calling it a fee when it's really a tax, because whether you use it or not and how much you use, you have actually no say or control over it. So I would be in favor of, if we're going to keep it a fee, then we should have control, and I'd keep it the way it is now, that we can use more, we pay more, we use less, we pay less. But if we change it, then I would say let's pull it all the way off the bill and just pull it out of the general fund.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, when we talked about this a week or two ago in a meeting that a few of us had with the staff,
I thought this was a good idea as far as going to a flat rate for the sewer. It just seemed to make sense considering all these other cities are doing it. It would make sense. But having had a couple of conversations since then with some other council members, it was mentioned to me, and I agree with the statement that anytime there's a flat fee, those who use more are being subsidized by those who are using less. So those who are using less are paying for those who are using more, right? I mean, it makes sense. If everybody spent $10 a month on milk, those who drink 100 gallons of milk in a month that have a lot of teenagers would be very grateful. Those who don't drink milk would be not very grateful, right? I mean, it just kind of makes sense. So I'm not sure how I feel about going to a flat rate. I appreciate what it means for the staff and what it means for the system and everything else. I'm just not sure it's the right thing to do at this point. The green waste cans divided by 12 sounds great. And by the way, you're making an extra half a cent per month. So that's nice. You got a round. Nobody pays in half cents. But the sewer rate, I'm struggling with it right now. Thanks.
I, for the same reasons that have already been mentioned, struggle with changing the sewer fee. I'm in support of the green waste cans because that's contracted and it's the same for everyone. Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I could go either way with the sewer fee. I like the way it's being calculated now because it's the closest way to make sure that people are paying for what they're using, short of having a meter to see actual usage. If we had a meter and we were sure, then absolutely build strictly based on usage. But where we don't have that, it's kind of an ingenious approach to try and figure out what people are going to be using. But it's difficult to explain to residents how it works. Well, we wait till the winter and figure out what your average usage is during the winter, because most of the water is not going for your lawn, it's coming inside the house. So it's coming in through the house, is likely going out through the sewer. So that's how we figure out how much discharge you have, how much usage you have during the winter. Pretty sharp way of trying to figure out what that usage is. Certainly not foolproof, but it takes a lot to try and calculate that out. We've had conversations before when it comes to stormwater as to trying to figure out what actual utilization is. If somebody has instead of having a full driveway, maybe they just have some of those concrete square bricks, so they come in, so there's plenty of exposed grass. Most of the water is soaked up into the yard, as opposed to somebody who pours concrete over their entire backyard, side yard. There's a whole lot more discharge going into the system. The argument was it takes a lot of staff time to calculate that, and to try and maintain that, it's just really not feasible. So a prior council said, we're not going to try and calculate things out that way. We're just going to go with the flat rate. Here, like I said, I'm kind of on the fence. I think we're getting closer to what actual usage is, which is where I want to be. But for the sake of ease of staff, for communicating this, the method of calculation to residents, I'd also question, and hopefully this is something you can answer, what is the average impact to a residential family? Is this just a few cents difference one way or the other, or something substantial? And then the other question I want to ask, on this slide that's up right here, where it says proposed fees, it's not clear which fee we're talking about. That would be approximately $24 a month. Is that the sewer fee still, where we're going from $16 to $24? Can you explain both of those? Thank you.
Yeah, the flat fee there is the sewer that would go, it's right around $23.56 right now, and the rate would go to around $25.32 as of July 1st. And back to your comment, when you look at most of the districts, they're very, very consistent as far as the average usage. And I think for most people, it wouldn't make very much of a difference from what's being proposed as far as the flat amount.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just did some rough calculations with my water bill, because that is something that I'm tracking my city bills for later topics. Currently, under the proposed schedule, I'm a family of 6, and I would pay, based on my usage, which was 8,000 gallons over the winter, my last bill. Under the current schedule, I would pay $28.19, and under this schedule, I would pay $24. Now, I assume I'm a family of 6. If I'm using less water, I would imagine that might increase, because I would have, I might only use 4,000 gallons if I'm a family of 3, for instance. And so I would be paying less than $24. And so as we talked, that's kind of what I discovered, is it's a couple dollars a month. If it'll probably be an increase if you're a smaller family unit, might be a decrease if you're a larger family unit. There's some intrinsic costs. I'm not, my background is finance, and there's intrinsic costs. You know, I don't know what time it takes our staff to if it's something that's manually entered, or it's a CSV file that's imported into the system to calculate the winter usage. So I can get the intrinsic costs, the simplification. I agree that it feels better when you're measuring usage, but in the real world, that might be a complicated thing, and the time to calculate that. So I could go either way. I think it's simpler to do the flat rate, to be honest with you, and it saves some staff time. So I think there would be some residual cost savings from that. So I guess, you know, that's kind of my perspective, is that we can't just have everything just in one bucket. There's other factors that play into this figure. Thank you.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. Certainly some kinks to work out with the audio. I had to back out of the queue to get my question answered, and then Councilmember Anderson snuck in before I could get to my follow-up. So it'd be really, really nice if it were possible just for all of the staff mics to always be available to be hot. But anyway, neither here nor there. So that's kind of the same direction I was going. I just wanted to clarify, because it looks, based on these slides, like there's a substantial increase from, can you go back a couple slides to where it says the 16.19 or 16 point whatever it was? Yeah, 16.19 fixed to 24 fixed, but that leaves out the per $1.50 average. So for my family, I feel like we did really, really good on our winter usage. We were only at 6,000 gallons for a family of 4. 2 of those 4 are under age, well, I guess there's a 3.5-year-old and an 18-month-old. So there's a lot of laundry going and a lot of dishes being washed. So 6,000 gallons, I felt pretty good about that. And it's right, I believe our first tier goes to what, 7,000 gallons? Where does our first tier end? 7,000? So if I'm in my first tier of usage, which we want for kind of what we anticipate is kind of the bare minimum, if I did that 16.19, plus I have 7,000 gallons that I'm using at that $1.50 a gallon, means 16.19 fixed plus $10.50 for the water usage, or for the, I'm mixing and matching my rates. Anyway, the $1.50 for the sewer, that would bring my total right now to $26.69. So I think most people are going to find themselves saving money with this. I don't think it's going to be a substantial increase for anybody. And even in this instance, let's say I'm using 5,000 gallons, it's right about break even. Instead of paying $23.69 a month, I would be paying $24, 31-cent difference. For the manpower it takes for staff to try and calculate things out, answer the questions, I'm sure most people wouldn't argue too much with a 31-cent change to their bill for something that's easily understandable. So when I say I'm on the fence, I'm really leaning more towards supporting the flat fee. I don't think there's anything, although it's not ideal and it doesn't really get perfect usage, I think this is as close as we're going to get. And on the scale that we're working, where it's literally pennies difference, I mean, not even enough to get a candy bar if you were to go back even 20, 30 years, I can be supportive of all of the changes that have been suggested here. So thank you, Mayor.
Is there a motion there somewhere?
So,
Councilmember McConaughey.
having said that, I will jump back to the packet so I make sure I read this right, and move to adopt Resolution 17-30.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember McConaughey, a second by Councilmember Nichols. Discussion to the motion. Councilmember Burton.
If you were to separate those two, I could support the green waste one, but not the sewer one, and keep it on that bill.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with what Councilmember Burton just said. However, I could also support the sewer rate, except the guy who lives in a very small house by himself is going to see a big increase. And I don't know what what percentage of the population we're talking about that lives in a two-bedroom house by yourself, you know, just maybe the senior citizen or whatever who maybe doesn't shower every day. I don't know. I take that back. Strike that. You know, you get the low water users are going to see a big jump if you use, say, 2,000 gallons a month, just because I can do that math really easy. That's $19.19. They're going to go up $10, and these are the fixed income seniors that are going to come and complain about this. That said, the guy with 10 kids who uses 10,000 gallons a month in the wintertime is going to love this. And I'm trying to decide how many of which are in the city, so I know which population I want to offend and which population I want to appease. I know, and I don't mean that. I mean, I want to do the right thing here by everybody as close as we can. And I think as close as we can, whereas this is not a perfect system, I think it's, whereas for most people it's going to be sixes. There's a significant population I think that's going to be affected negatively at the expense of a significant portion of the population that's going to be affected positively. And so don't ask me how I'm going to vote yet. Wait till Melanie calls my name.
Councilmember Nichols.
Thank you. Originally, my thought process was right in line with what Councilmember Burton said just a moment ago, that I could support it just with the green waste change. But Councilmember McConaughey just kind of swayed me to the other side. I mean, in this particular case, I do think it's relatively insignificant. What I would like to see is the ultimate simplicity of it. So I will be supporting this motion on that fact.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to make one more comment, but I'll withhold based on the hour.
I just would like to comment that I believe the system we have, the formula that we use, was thought through very well. I think it's fair to all that use the sewer system in our city. I would support a flat rate for the green waste, and so for that purpose I'll be voting against the motion. Let's vote.
Councilmember McConaughey?
Aye.
Councilmember Burton?
No.
Mayor Rolfe?
No.
Councilmember Jacob?
Maybe.
Doesn't work.
No. Oh, shoot. Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
The vote passes 4-2.
Business item 8C, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance 17-18, amending the 2009 West Jordan Municipal Code, Title 9, Chapter 7, Article A, Section 5, regarding utility service fees. Bill?
This item just goes along with the previous item. This changes the billing for sewer to be based on the uniform fee schedule, which would be based on a flat amount. And so that's really all this does is take it from the volume-based approach for residential customers to a flat amount for residential customers.
This should be very simple. Councilmember McConaughey.
If there's no comment, I would move to approve ordinance 17-18.
I have a motion by Councilmember McConaughey, a second by Councilmember Nichols. Discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's vote.
Mayor Rolfe,
No.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey,
Aye.
Councilmember Burton,
No.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
The vote passes 4-2 in favor.
Item 8D, discussion and possible action regarding a 5-year plan and tier structure for water rates. Steve Blaine here?
Mayor,
Yes.
may we take a 5-minute break?
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Burton, a second by Councilmember Nichols. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? We'll have a 5-minute only, please.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. So the water rates with the fee structure, I was thinking that to move that towards the end because pointing to the committee members, I think that would go really quick. In fact, I believe one of them is here in that back right corner, waiting to see that one.
Okay. We can do that.
I'll do that.
We can do that.
Please move that one forward.
they go first to say anything. That's my question. But I don't know. So I personally think everybody gets on, we're done, it's that quick.
So looking at what's left of the agenda, do you want me to make a motion to move just that one item next, or move water rates to the bottom?
I don't, there's nobody here for the other one.
Okay, so
Yeah, so we can just move the one up and then we'll just go down. I mean, we should be done in a half hour. Even with the 5 over 1 rates, it should be, we should be. I'm excited for the water rates. Especially, I'm excited for the water rates. That's going to hurt some people this November. Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that we change the order of the agenda and visit business item 8G next. This is the confirming the appointment of members to serve on the ad hoc committee to study forms of government.
Since there's members of the audience, we have a motion, Councilmember McConaughey, as seconded by Councilmember Jacob. Since there's members of the audience waiting to hear, is there anyone opposed to this? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none? Item 8G, discussion and possible action regarding Resolution 17-72, confirming the appointment of members to serve on the ad hoc committee to study forms of government. Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. Based on the decision that we've made as a council to move forward with creating this committee, I don't think it would be appropriate for us to offer any direction or anything other than what's already been said in the prior council sessions and with the ordinance that suggested the creation of this committee. Therefore, I would move to approve Resolution 17-71, confirming the City Council appointment of members to serve on the ad hoc forms of government committee.
Second. We have a motion by Councilmember McConaughey, a second by Councilmember Nichols. Discussion of the motion. Councilmember McConaughey.
I just want to read into the record. I know it's already in print, but I want to read into the record and thank the people who are serving on this committee. We have, and this is listed in the order in which they appear on the paper in front of me, Bart Barker, Joel Coleman, Adam S. Gardner, Kathy Hilton, Chad R. Lamb, Joe F. Martinez, John C. Price, Randall B. Rasmussen, and Michael Toronto. So I want to offer appreciation to them for their service that they've stepped up to offer. Thank you, Mayor.
Let's vote.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey?
Aye.
Councilmember Burton?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe?
Yes.
The vote passes 6 in favor.
Item 8D, discussion and possible action regarding a 5-year plan and tier structure for water rates. Who's handling this? Oh, there's Steve. Steve Lane.
Thank you. Well, we have before us tonight a proposed plan for increasing water rates over the next 5 years. This particular plan is a compilation of various recommendations that came from several council members recently. And I would be glad to review the details of that proposal if that's what you'd like to do tonight. The reason I say that is because I'm aware that there are other options as well that might need to be discussed tonight. Do we want to review the proposal in the staff report first?
Everyone reviewed this enough that we go back to discussion?
I think we have it enough. Thank you, Steve. Please be ready for questions if they arise.
Yep.
Council. Councilmember Nichols.
Thank you. I have nothing prepared. This is just going to kind of come out. But in reviewing this from staff, I want to, number one, thank them because the detail was very helpful. The time they spent with us in preparing to come to this meeting, as you can tell, it's been saved the public a lot of time tonight in our discussion as we kind of decipher what it is. But what's being presented to me in my mind, well, I'll try to portray with you. Number one, we're discussing several pieces with this. Number one is establishing a rate structure that's kind of ongoing. Not kind of, it is ongoing. That's going to gradually increase over time to encompass not only the commodity increase in rates that the Water Conservancy District is charging us, but also to the growing capital project costs that come with it, maintenance, staff, raises, salary increases as time goes on. So it encompasses that. And I think this is a really good attempt to go in that direction. And I think it's the graph that shows revenue versus expenses is very helpful to see how that's driving over the long term, specifically with respect to unrestricted cash. That's the most benefit to me. To me, that shows us within the water fund itself. The funny thing is I grabbed the street item, so I don't know when to talk about this. Yeah, I mean, the graph would be helpful just so the public can see that we have it. So as we look at the water here, we can see that over time you've got that's different. That's the status quo. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, that's different than mine. The status quo, it's actually good to see it. You can see that we were showing a deficit over the long term. Now we've got this 5-year plan that's showing that we're going to show unrestricted cash near or slightly above or below zero. The below scares me, so we talked about it. But it also shows that little spike in expenses in the 1 year. We've discussed that at length, what that is, and with our Public Works Department, and it's understood. We could perhaps stretch that out a little bit so we don't need that all at once. It's very helpful. This graph has been, at least I think for the public, is very helpful because it shows us where our cash is. It shows us where expenses are going. It shows you where we're at. It also shows the increases on this graph does, specifically in the bottom of the table. I like that staff has listened to some council decisions and that we want to stretch out the increases, and also we want to try to adjust it with respect to increases on January 1st, matching the calendar year versus the fiscal year that we do in our government. I think that's a step forward. Our business community has asked for that, and I think it also helps in residential communities too, because they tend to operate in that kind of calendar. That being said, there's another piece. In that table down below, it talks about these new tiers. And this is where I am following out of line with this plan. And I would not be willing to move forward with this plan with these new tiers that are going to be proposed. I don't have the numbers today, and I just think that council discuss this over time, but philosophically, I've changed a little bit in my 7.5 years in the council, and I firmly believed the last 7.5 years that we could somehow create a system where we could establish an equal charge that all of us are equally paying into the system on a base fee, just to have a water terminal. What should it be if we had dry pipes? Just to have those pipes in the ground, everybody should pay an equal fee. That's what I believe. And I still in principle believe that, but I think it's almost impossible to come up with a rate to make it fair for your residential customers in addition to your businesses. There is not a fair system in that kind of scenario. And so the fairest thing for me would be that you charge every user per gallon they use. Period. Every dollar from zero and up. I firmly believe, even our current structure today, we have users who are subsidizing the other users. I don't know exactly where that is. I'm not going to say this is, I know it's where it is because I don't. But I firmly believe the fairest way to know where your water is being charged is if it was a per gallon fee. What that means is, as the system is intact, let's say we have a 48-inch pipe, and there's all this water coming through. You've got all these water or users drawing the water. Those pipes have to be bigger for those users who are using more water. Well, guess what? If you all pay a per gallon fee, they're going to pay for each little bit of that water they're using. And I'm really sorry for staff because this light bulb moment's just kind of come on in my mind in the last 30 days. Because for 7.5 years, I believe we have the right system. In the last 30 days, my opinion's changing. And my opinion is a pretty big swing from where I've been and where I want to go. I might be alone on this, but I can support this revenue plan. I like the rates because I know we're going to have increased costs. We're going to have increased capital projects. I can support the increased revenue. I cannot support the new tier idea, the new tier concept. I don't want to talk too much more, it'll just sound like rambling, but that, in principle, that's just the idea. I just want all of our users, whether they're businesses, whether they're residents, to be paying a fair amount for the water they're using. And I don't want one homeowner subsidizing the other homeowner, and I don't want one business subsidizing another business. And that's just where my opinion is today. Thank you.
Councilmember McConaughey. Thank you, Mayor. A little bit different approach in my thought process, and if possible, I'd like to share my screen just to show you guys how I've been doing some of the math, trying to figure things out. Yeah, I believe I'm facing this, so let me switch over to this. All right, so we've got things broken out so that we have a availability charge, and then we also have the volume charge for the amount of water actually used. And we've been kind of looking at the volume without looking at the whole picture. So what I wanted to do, well, let me back up and just be blunt about what caused this. We've had folks who've been saying, or what caused me to think down this route. We've had folks who've been complaining that, look, the cost for you guys to acquire water is $1.50 a gallon. Why are you charging us so much more than that? That's not fair. The city shouldn't be trying to make a profit. What's missed in that argument is all of the additional expenses that the city incurs in order to deliver that water. Our cost of supply maybe about $1.50, but I wanted to go back and find out how much water do we use and how much, when we go back to our CAFR, how much do we spend on water? So we can figure out what is a true per gallon cost if we were to do it that way. I'm not suggesting we go this route. I just want a comparison point for us to have something to look at. So these numbers may be off. These numbers did not come from staff. I could talk about that for a bit, but I won't. We have the volume numbers that came from Jordan Valley Water Conservancy. So this is in, thousands. So 6.6 billion gallons of water, so translated to thousands. And then we have the annual cost from the CAFR for the last couple of years. So basically, our actual cost to deliver water to the residents, not looking at any revenues, just the expenses, Last year was about $2.38 per gallon. This year it's about $2.61 per gallon, or excuse me, per 1,000 gallons. That would be really pricey. Yeah, so about $2.61 per 1,000 gallons. So if we had a 100% purely variable rate based on usage, that's about where, ballpark, back of the envelope, where we would need to be to break even. I'm not suggesting we go that route, because then the problem you have is in heavy water years, there's not that much usage, you don't have money to pay for the electricity, for the pumps, for the projects, for the staff. So that's why we have that availability charge. So there is rationale behind it. Looking at how it would affect the businesses if we were to go that route, first, I did not need to do both of those, I just meant to do the first one. Again, I'm not proposing this, this is just hypothetical. If my daily usage, let's say I'm a business that uses 2 million gallons of water per day, that's where I would be annually. So annually, under this structure, I'd be paying about $1.9 million for water. Under the same kind of hypothetical scenario, this is what we actually have today. So at our current rates, we have an availability charge, and then we've got our flat usage rate. Basically, instead of paying $1.9 million towards the cost, I'm paying $1.1 million. And again, I'm pulling numbers based on what the expenses are from finance. So proportionally, our heavy water users really are contributing more to, they're putting more wear and tear on the system. They're causing us to incur more of those costs. So having said that, when we start looking at what we can do to adapt the structure, you really want to be cognizant, because you certainly wouldn't want to do something like this to somebody out there, but you also don't want the subsidizing. You want people to be as self-sufficient as possible. So in the background, that's what I'm thinking in my mind. That would be ideal to where you're actually paying just for what you personally are using. I can bring up Councilmember Burton's comments about tax versus fee, but that's already stated. In my mind, this is what I want to work towards as we're looking at rate structures. I don't necessarily want to have an argument about, okay, is $1.54 the right number, is $1.56 the right number? I would rather we set a revenue target, and what I did is I just looked and picked a number out of the air. I hadn't seen the budget, the city manager's budget wasn't available online until during our meeting, so I just said, okay, what was our cost 2015 versus 2016? What was the percentage increase? Let's just bring that over and say that's the revenue that we need. What I'd like to do is be able to say, this is what we want the availability charge to be for residential and for commercial, and then set a strategy or a mechanism for determining the commercial rate. And I would suggest cost of supply plus 10% or something like that. And then we set the base rate for residential, knowing that this is the, well, let me back up. I'd like to set the availability rates and then set the commercial rate, and then let staff come back and say, okay, based on what you've set, this is where residential rates would fall. We set the difference between tiers and say, okay, maybe we want an 8% differentiation between tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, or maybe that's too much, we only want 6% differentiation. Based on what we set those tiers at, this gives staff something to work with to say, okay, well, based on the strategy and the mechanism we provided, these are the numbers that would fall into the slots for your tiers. So that's kind of the thought process that I had. I don't want to detract from what staff has presented. They did exactly what council asked for them, or asked them, what we asked of them over the last few weeks. And as we've had additional conversation, this is kind of what my mind has evolved to. And I think this type of strategy where we're setting the mechanism, not necessarily picking the numbers, but saying this is the strategy, I think this does better for us in the long term to get us where we need to be. And I'll leave my comments at that.
Councilmember Anderson. Thank you, Mayor. I want to give a brief background as we as a council, just for those that are here tonight. We use 20,329 acre-feet of water, which is the 6.6 billion gallons of water that we use. And I don't know that there's a magic equation to do this perfectly. However, in one of the meetings that I had with staff, we talked about Denver and their water rates. And just last year, they did something a little differently. And so I'm just going to read a newspaper article about theirs. They went to a very low availability charge, I mean, like $5 availability charge. And their per thousand gallon rate ranged anywhere from $2.75 per thousand gallons to $12.16 per thousand gallons for heavy water users, which is pretty pricey. But what the end result of that was, and this is more sidebar related to what is out there. Denver Water wanted a 3.8% revenue increase. However, what it did is it had the effect of raising water bills up to 35% for customers who use the least water. And the ones that use the most water actually got a discount of their water bill. So I don't know that there's a magic formula. I don't know that this is the right thing. I don't know if there's a way we can tweak it or massage it. But I do recognize also what got us to this point is prior council had raised water rates to over 4 years to get us to where now this council has to fix them and come up with a plan. And I do applaud staff for coming up with a 5-year plan, which I think is wonderful, and to be able to spread the cost over multiple years. It took us 4 years to get behind. It should take us not 1 year to catch up. And also listening to make, after this year, make the raises every January. So it's consistent with a business budget cycle. So I think we're moving in the right direction. Again, I don't know what the magic formula is, but I do appreciate Councilmember McConaughey's work on comparing our water expenses to the 6.6 billion gallons of water that we use here in the second driest state. Thank you. Councilmember Burton.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'm surprised at where this is taking us. It was where I expected to go. So it's kind of like you go up and you buy your gas, regardless of how much you use, you pay the same dollar per gallon, regardless of what kind of truck delivered it, how it got there. However, I don't know if you are willing to accept the staff's proposal today and then work on that for next year, or if you want to hold off on the staff's proposal now and start working on that immediately. Councilman Nichols and McConaughey, I see where you're coming from. What I did is I looked at it with the information that staff provided, and I saw that it's $1.50 per thousand gallons. So if that's what it's costing us, is you take all the numbers and take them apart, add them all together, divide them all out, that's what it comes out with. So in my mind, I'm thinking that's what we should be paid. So the next year, I see that it has 10% on there, but if our rates don't go up 10%, I don't think we should go up 10% just because we want to. I think if we're going to bring ours to 150, then we should increase it, whatever our increase is. So this last increase, according to Councilman Nichols, was telling me that it's 1.8, I believe he said, in Jordan Valley Water Conservatory District. So, I mean, in other words, since January 1, 2018, that should be 2%. And then year 2, instead of being 10% there, I think that number should reflect whatever we get from Jordan Valley again. And if it's another 2%, then it should be 2%. If it's 3%, then it should be 3%. Because that way our number stays in line with what our cost is, and we keep that line straight in line with what our cost is. Our availability, however, is a whole other factor, and I don't know if those numbers are based on any calculations of the 18 or 10, or if we're just trying to get enough money to cover what we haven't been charging or paying for from that in the past, and trying to do a little catch-up. So 2 things in my mind on that. One, on availability. If that is to maintain and keep those pipes going, if that should come from the water fees, like the truck driver bringing the gas to the service station, then yes, I think those should be done together. But if we're going to consider that infrastructure like a street and a road, then that should be not charged as part of the water, that should be charged in taxes like we should for our streets and roads. So those are my thoughts.
Councilmember Jacobs.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. When we reviewed this proposal with staff and played with the numbers last week when we met and looked at what percentages it would take to get the graphs in what spot, by the time we were done with the conversation, I thought we had landed somewhere pretty good. Again, there were limited stakeholders in the room. There were 3 council members, 4 staff members. 3, 4 staff members. And you're all here tonight, too. And since then, I've had conversations with other stakeholders, our business community, other council members that were not there that night, and talked about kind of how this should play out. The reason why we can't just bring, the reason why the increase for year 1 doesn't then equal year 2's being our wholesale cost increase on this proposal is because the increase in year 1 is not sufficient to bring us up to the line. If it was 28% that the staff was proposing initially, not 18. And so 28% would get us up to the line, and then you could go forward as was mentioned with just the wholesale cost increases. On the water, trouble is the water is not the only piece of the water department. The water is part of it. The price of gas changes all the time, so that analogy was interesting. Everybody does pay the same amount for gas, but that price changes all the time. It changes based on how much it costs to get the gas from the refinery to the gas station. Maybe not the truck that it's in, per se, but how many trucks, how many pipelines, how many boats it has to go. Those kinds of things, trucks, our supply lines, our infrastructure improvements, our capital projects, are all built into the water fee for the water department. So the wholesale cost of water cannot be the only determining factor in what our water costs, because those expenses will remain relatively static regardless of how much water we actually use in a given year. Whereas the price of water in a given year, or not the price, but the volume of water we use in any given year may vary drastically depending on how wet the year is. This year, so far, has been very wet. If it stays as wet as it's been, we're going to use a lot less water this year, and that number, when you divide it out, if you have the number of residents, and the number of dollars, and the number of gallons, and you divide that out, it's not going to look the same as it did last year or next year if it's drier. So there has to be a fixed component to this to cover the cost. Now that fixed component is in the budget. I'm not saying a fixed component on the bill, because on the bill it can change, like you mentioned, based on how many gallons somebody uses. But we have to have a revenue target that we hit every year, regardless of how wet it is, because we have to fix expenses every year. I don't think we're going to fire people because we had a wet year. We might. I don't think we will. So that's what I'm thinking, just philosophically speaking. It's not as simple as we're trying to make it be. It's a very complicated discussion. Again, with this proposal, when we were done with that meeting last week and we landed kind of on what's been proposed tonight, I was comfortable with it. And I would probably be okay passing it tonight as it sits and then working towards a fairer system, because I think it's going to take a long time to get towards a fairer system, and our red numbers on our fund balance is scary. So I'm not sure exactly what that means. I believe we have to act quickly. I'm not sure exactly how we have to act at this point, however. I do know that I'm not in favor of putting this off to our next strategic plan, for example. We've done that once. We had our strategic plan, and now we're still doing this. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to come down tonight. I do know, though, that I'm not in favor of putting this off for a long, long time longer. It's got to happen sooner than later, and I'm not willing to put an exact deadline on that, because that's going to depend on how complex we make this. But it's complex. Thanks.
Councilmember Anderson. Thank you, Mayor. I just had another comment. I wanted to talk to or chat or ask a question of Bill. And in this question, I'm looking at vertical, unrestricted cash, vertical green bars, and in 2018, we're minus 3% in the red. But we're also looking at bonding for some water tanks to handle some growth in a leaky tank and to add to our, what do they call it, baby supply, or what's in the water tank, 18-hour supply of water. So, Bill, I called you ahead of time to see if you could talk to the bonding people to see how that impacts our ability to bond for tanks as well.
Yes, I've been working with John Crandall and the folks at George K. Baum and looking at bonding for two $10 million debt services, one in 2017, one in 2018. The reason why is that we split them up. I was talking to Dave Murphy. It's difficult to spend the entire, if we had a bond for $20 million to spend it within 18 months. And so his recommendation was to split it up into $10 million in 2017 and $10 million in 2018. And they ran some numbers for us, and currently, if we had no rate increase, we could not do bonding. We don't have the financials in the shape that we can do the $10 million debt in 2017 or in 2018. With staff's report, if the recommendations are approved as presented here, we could do both the $10 million in 2017 and $10 million in 2018.
Okay, thank you. And so I'm kind of leaning more with Councilmember Jacob, in that I think we have to find something right now. I don't know if this is perfect. I think it can still be massaged a little bit. I think we've made great progress. 5-year plan in January, spreading costs out over multiple years, spreading the increase out over multiple years. So, I don't know, maybe Steve will have an opportunity to speak a little bit on the things that we're bringing up. And that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I share my screen once more? I did not. That is being made through the automatic cycle frame. Anyway, I'm in agreement with the thought that we definitely need to take some sort of action and at least give direction so we can start bringing this to a resolution. So I want to bring this back up again. And what my proposal would be is to use this, not necessarily the spreadsheet, but this model as the framework for giving staff direction on finalizing the rates for us. The parts in yellow are the parts that staff would tell us where they should be, the revenue target, for example, and then the things that I would think we could direct them to do and say, take the availability charge for both residential and commercial and increase it by 5%. And I'm going off 5% because this is more of an interior within West Jordan change, not necessarily impacted by the cost of supply of water, but this is electricity and staffing and pumps and things of that nature. So I would say bump that up by 10% and then set a strategy for how we set the commercial rate, whether that is cost plus 10% or cost plus 8%. Set what we want that to be, or at least give them direction that this is what we'd like to do, so next meeting we can have a model so we can fine tune this a little bit. And then say we want the difference between the different rates to be a certain percentage. And then this, again, in yellow would be what staff would come back with. So where we're saying, we're a number of folks that said we need to take some action, we need to not keep this down the road, we need to do something. I'm proposing that this would be that something, use this template. Let them tell us what the revenue target needs to be, and based on just a quick, again, we didn't have the budget for next year until we came into this meeting. if I look at the $43.7 million that's proposed for the water fund, and subtract out the $25.2 million from the water projects, that's where I'm getting this $18.4 million. So I'm guessing roughly 18.4, 18.5 million would be the revenue target. But I would propose that we debate what we want the strategies for the section in green to be, and then give this to staff so they can come back with something a little bit more fixed. So that the next meeting is not debating every single potential cog within the system, but we can already have these 5 items pretty well figured out. So I'll leave it at that, and if someone wants to join with me going that way, or if there's no consensus to go that way, I'll drop it and we can move on. Thank you, Mayor.
Can we go back to the previous screen? I want to state that I am in favor of doing this right here on July 1st, 2017, and nothing beyond that in any year. And in fact, I'll state on the record that if you do this here, you're going to shoot economic development in the foot immediately in this city. We've already raised businesses 17%. Adding another 10% next year would be 27%, and another 10% after that would be 37% of those that pay the bulk of the taxes in the city. I don't know, I heard stated that Council Member Nichols said we're going to get charged 1.8% next year. 1.7. So I don't want to be guessing, and I certainly don't want to be putting 8% on top of what the commodity charge is. I think we fix it here. We fix it here tonight, immediately. We've talked about this since strategic plan, January 27th. And I don't want to put it off another night. We've put this off for at least 2 months. And I believe staff needs to know, unlike my colleague, I believe that council needs to direct staff as to what we're going to do. And my opinion is we do this immediately and we do nothing beyond this. I don't know where this 5-year came from. I also want to state that this is, if you look at this item right here in the next current year, and I'm reading from our most recent, which I have to compliment our financial statement staff for producing these. This was the quarter ending March 31st, which is the 3rd quarter of our fiscal year. We have 1 quarter left to go, less than that, of course, now. We actually have 2 months and a week left in this calendar year. If you look at this, we budgeted capital projects for water fund of $6.6 million. To date, we spent 3.16% of that. So you're going to be carrying over $6.454 million into next year, this year, right here. Add that to that, and you'll be above the line even where we were in 2014. Then if you look at this spike here that's proposed, which I don't know why it's proposed like that, I would think that if we're going to do some capital projects in 18, it would be a much more refined line that carries over a few years. But if you add that, that's $7-point-something million in 1 calendar year. So if you add $6 million to next year's, but if you add $6 million carrying over from this year into 2017, even with 70th South, because that leaves us $400,000 to spend on 70th South remaining this year, which won't happen, but if we did spend that much, we're going to be above the line in 2017. If you bring that spike and flatten that spike, you're also going to be much flatter over that period of time. And so adding what I just described, year 1, which I will support, we do it immediately, starting in 2017, because I believe like was stated earlier, everybody should pay exactly what they use. And it shouldn't be, we shouldn't be subsidizing, which we have been. I didn't know this until end of last year. We've been subsidizing businesses 26 cents a gallon. We've been subsidizing some of our residents as much as 44 cents per 1,000 gallons. And I believe everybody should pay, whether you use 2,000 gallons a month or whether you use 40,000, you should be paying what you use at the base rate. And then because state law requires us to have tiers, only because of that, I will accept the tiers that staff has proposed in the book and pass that tonight if that's what somebody proposes. Because they're small tiers, and those that are using excess water should pay a little bit more. And I like the analogy, if you drive a smart car, which somebody on our staff, and I don't know who it is, drives a smart car, I see it out here every day. You know, you go to the gas station, you fill up and put a few gallons in, and if you drive a 1-ton with a 460 V8 engine, you're going to pay a lot more to fill your car, but you're both paying the same price per gallon, and it's whatever the gas station set that rate at. So I think if we're going any discussion beyond this year, especially since Councilmember Nichols is on the board at Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District, and now that I know that it's only 1.8, which is the first time I heard that, they were saying it's between 4 to 5% what they were projecting. So especially, we're not doing anything past this. The idea in this was to set the rate and then charge what the rate increased each year and then be approved by the council. I don't know where this projected 10% came from. I'll remain quiet and listen to the other council. Thank you. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the record, I'm one who suggested having a 5-year plan, and I did that based on discussions with the business community who felt that if we were having increases, it's easier for them to budget and do it on January 1st, so I'll take responsibility for that.
Boy, that's interesting, because I took a bashing last Friday at lunch with the board of directors of the business community for that plan. So you're saying they proposed that to you?
No, not the business community, not the chamber. I talked to individual businesses, and
they wanted 10% for the next.
No, I'm not talking about the percentage. What I'm talking about is what was asked is having a future plan of what rates might be, so that there was a consistency and there wasn't the surprise, so that they can plan for it from their budget. I did not. I also got spoken to by the Chamber of Commerce, which is the business community. However, what I'm saying is I'm taking ownership of the 5-year plan and having a system in place, because that's the feedback I got from individual businesses, some of our larger businesses.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. I will also take responsibility for the 5-year plan idea. It's my opinion and just a basic philosophy that we should plan as far ahead as we can for budgets and for budget increases, especially so that there is no surprise in future years, so that we don't go 4 years without an increase, watch our reserves drop the way the graph shows, and then have to have big increases to make up for it as the blue line has dropped below the red line too far. So I'll take some responsibility for a 5-year plan as well. I don't think it's a bad thing to have a 5-year plan. I think it's a very, very good thing to have a 5-year plan. And I'd be happy to discuss that philosophy with anybody at another time. As for what we should do tonight, I would be supportive of Councilmember McConaughey's idea as far as setting in motion a system rather than a number, so that we don't have to do this every year, so that we don't have to decide what should the number be next time. so that we have a system in place that is based on our costs, and not just the availability cost of water. Like I mentioned a minute ago, that's not our only cost in this plant. If we decide that all of our costs are going to go up by whatever Jordan Valley Water says this year, it doesn't include if, for example, the price of gas does go up exponentially like it has in the past, especially if there's war in the Middle East, or something like that, your price of gas could double. And that's going to affect the fixed costs and the other costs that we have built into the water fund. And we just need to acknowledge that there's realities beyond just the price of water. The price of water is important, and I believe it should be a factor in determining how the plan proceeds from year to year, but it should not be the only factor. We keep throwing that out there, 1.8% or 4% or 6%, whatever Jordan Valley decides to raise the rates on in any given year. That's great, but again, that's not the only charge. If we just pass that cost along to the residents, we wouldn't have an ability to pay for our pumps, to pay for our reservoirs, to pay for maintaining, let alone capital projects to improve and cover our growth. The last 4 years, in my opinion, have been irresponsible as far as not keeping rates in line with expenses. And unfortunately, it's going to cause some short-term pain because we need to make up now for the irresponsibility of the last 4 years of not raising rates. I agree that we didn't need to raise rates a lot. The fund balance in 2014 is 71%, way too high. So we didn't need to raise rates in 2014, or at least not very much, but we need to plan ahead. And I will take responsibility every day of the week and twice on Sunday for a fighter. Thank you.
I just want to state that there's been no irresponsibility. We've maintained a large fund balance in up near $10 million for 3 years, and it will be over $10 million this year. So that was no irresponsibility over the last 4 years. No, it's not shrinking. It's going to grow this year when you move the $6 million that won't be spent in this calendar year forward.
The last 4 years, that money's gotten smaller.
Okay, that's what the staff projects, and if you want to look at this, you have it.
This is the past. This is the projections. 2014, 15, and 16 are not projections.
Yeah, and then there are large surplus fund balances. That's a tax on the people.
And getting smaller.
Yeah, that's a tax on the people. Councilmember Burton.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so as I look at this, I take the commodity being the water itself and availability being the other costs we put in there. So in order to make this happen and move, I would make a motion to accommodate both Councilman McConaughey's ideas and staff's idea on the July 1 part to accept the rates that they have projected for July 1, 2017 only, and at the same time give staff direction to follow through with the ideas and plan that Councilman McConaughey has presented, that we can take a look at the future and work on that for our future needs and see if we can make this smoother.
I'll second that for discussion. Motion by Councilmember Burton, second by Mayor Rowe. Councilmember, discussion of the motion. Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I very much appreciate the inclusion of this template. However, I think it might be a little bit premature. One of the things I'm looking at, well, I would like to see us have a functional model where we can play with the different percentages for the different tiers and play with the base rate plus a certain percentage and then the availability charge plus a certain percentage to see where the numbers line up. I'm not in favor with what's been proposed from staff at this point. I'm okay with the July 1st part, the availability charge 18%. I'm not so sure about that, and that's why I kind of wanted to go back on my little template. You may not have caught, but I just did suggest whatever the current availability charge is plus 5%. I would really prefer that we have more of the emphasis on the commodity, so it's more based on actual usage than the static, this is what we charge everybody across the board. I think it's closer to being fair. So because the two routes seem a little bit incongruent, we start going one, we're further away from what I'm proposing, and then in subsequent years it'd be harder to come back to. So I think therefore I would be in opposition to the motion, though I very much appreciate the consideration my thought was given. Thank you.
Councilmember Burton.
If I adjust the availability down to 5% from 18, would that be acceptable?
Acceptable or not, I'm not the one who seconded the motion, so it doesn't matter too much at this point. I would still prefer to see how numbers come out, because even if my initial suggestion for some reason or another is just not feasible, I'd like to know that, but I think it's relatively doable. I want to see where those numbers come out. But I'd like to apply it to this year rather than starting January 1st. January 1st, I would honestly like to see how much smaller increases. Since we're only going 6 months, I would like, we're planning 10-10-10. I mean, ideally, I'd like to see no more than half of whatever year 2 is supposed to be. So I think I would still be no. But thank you again for the consideration.
You're welcome, but my motion is only for the July 1st, 2016, not on down the road. So thank you very much.
Understandable, but it was direction given to staff to incorporate that to bring back at a later time, so that's either going to be January 1st of the subsequent year, or if we were to come back.
Okay, in that case, I would like to amend my motion to accept the July 1st, 2017 portion of the staff report. Yes.
I'll second that. Councilmember Connie.
So for clarification, is that including the tiers and the rates, or we're just saying the effective date for any?
Tiers and rates, just like this.
Thank you for the clarification.
Let's vote.
Councilmember Burton,
Yes.
Mayor Ralph,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
No.
Councilmember McConaughey,
No.
Councilmember Nichols,
No.
Councilmember Anderson,
This is just to clarify, this is to adopt the July 1, the new tiers of 18%.
just July 1st of 2017.
I'm gonna say no.
Vote fails 2-4.
Councilmember Connie.
Thank you, Mayor. Give this a shot. I would, I guess unless it's not really necessary, but I would move to direct staff to prepare an interactive spreadsheet similar to what was shared today that can be brought back at our next regular council meeting, so that we can look at actual rates and numbers and adopt final rates at that time.
Second.
Yeah.
That was the pause in my thought. I wanted to say next council meeting, but that was going to be tomorrow. And I was trying to do the math. Do we have time to notice and have staff prepare in time for tomorrow? Because I really want to get it done. The answer's an obvious no. So yeah, May 10th.
We have a motion by Councilmember McConaughey, a second by Councilmember Jacob. Discussion to the motion? Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. I am in favor of the motion because I believe it is irresponsible to make an immediate knee-jerk reaction without also planning for the future. And this, I believe, will at least get us started with a system that will plan further into the future than just July 1st this year. So I'm in favor of the motion for that reason.
Let's vote.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Mayor Ralph,
No.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Councilmember Burton,
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Vote passes 5-1.
Before we move on to the next item, I would like the next chart that's put up for Water in the Future direct staff to incorporate exactly what's spent in 2017, the end of this fiscal year, on capital projects, and the balance to reflect on the chart the next time around. We've got $6.54 million remaining in 2 months and a week. I don't think we're going to spend all that. Business item 8E, discussion and possible action regarding a 5-year plan for streetlight fees. Steve Glenn.
Well, since that was so much fun, maybe we can do the same with streetlights. So we've proposed a 5-year plan for streetlights, and the purpose was to, once again, to spread the costs over time. Want me to work the slides? Okay. I'll pull up the slides here. Streetlights. This graph here shows status quo, meaning if revenues stay the same and expenses stay as projected, this is what we'll see. Basically, revenues matching the expenses. And that's with the assumption that the savings from the LED streetlights will be used for new lights in dark areas and pole replacement. And that amount we're expecting to be somewhere between $180,000 and $280,000 that we'll have available from LED savings. The proposal for increasing the streetlights fee would be to add to that amount. The engineers have recommended $500,000 per year as a target for installing lights in dark areas and replacing old light poles. This rate increase in the 5-year plan would bring us up to that amount of about $500,000 per year for that purpose by the end of 5 years. We're proposing zero change July 1st, but annual changes January 1st every year thereafter. First year 40%, which sounds like a large percent, but it's about, 60 cents? Excuse me, 40 cents. And then 20%, 10%, 5%, et cetera. So in all, we'd be looking at 75 cents over 5 years. Relatively small dollar amount. I guess the question is whether or not we want to increase that budget amount for adding lights in dark neighborhoods and replacing old poles.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. Real quick on the math on that. January 1st, 2018, 40% increase over the 171. I think that should actually be 23%, not 40%. Oh, it's a 40, yeah, okay, it's a cent change.
That's, yeah, forgive me. This was made in a short amount of time. Those should be 40 cents, 20 cents, 10 cents. Thank you.
The other part I wanted to ask for clarification on is in separate conversations you had talked a little bit about Jordan Landing, or maybe it was Justin. Somebody had mentioned Jordan Landing and the lights that we have in that area. Could you elaborate on the cost of, well, first of all, what the problems are in that area and the cost just to fix that one section right by the primary economic driver list, or one of the primary economic drivers?
To answer your question, Councilmember McCarthy, there are several streetlights along Jordan Landing Boulevard between 78 South and 7800 South. When those lights were put in, they were put in with the electric lines in direct area, so they weren't put in conduit. They were just very underground. And so as Jordan Landing, as the properties along Jordan Landing Boulevard have been developed, Those lines have been damaged with the cellar and have to be re-spliced over and over again. The poles along Jordan River Boulevard are a bunch of square steel poles. And at the base is when they were initially installed with just normal steel bolts. Not galvanized, not stainless steel, nothing, just normal steel bolts. And so the bolts over the last several years have rusted away. And so over the last year we've had either 2 or 3 poles fall down just because the bases have rotted. We do have a number of wires that we cannot keep running. They keep breaking, whether they just the slices fail, or there's another person that decides to walk on the sidewalk and just break the wire again. We figured that if we were to do a major overhaul of Jordan Landing Boulevard to replace the bases and the poles along Jordan Landing and replace the wiring and insert some conduits for those wires, it would cost us about $310,000.
Thank you for adding that part. I'll hold further comments until you're done with the presentation, but just want to make sure that part is for that consent to share. Thank you.
I think I'm done with the presentation. Thank you, though.
Thank you. It's just suspicious to me that 2017 being an election year, there's no change, yet there's a huge spike in 2018 right after the election. I assume the same people met to put this 5-year plan in place.
I don't think you need to worry about anything suspicious. It's simply an effort to match all of the other rates and change in January rather than July.
And you realize we'll get a $240,000 check from Power next council meeting, I believe.
I do.
For having the wisdom in the last 3 years to put LED lights in. Sorry, we need a motion to continue the meeting past 9 o'clock. Councilmember Anderson.
I'll move to continue the meeting past 9 o'clock.
A motion by Councilmember Anderson and a second by Councilmember McConaughey. Discussion to the motion. Seeing none, let's vote.
Councilmember McConaughey?
Aye.
Councilmember Burton?
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe?
No.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
The vote passes 5-1 in favor.
Councilmember Burton.
Thank you, Mayor. So as I look at this and take into account that the new streetlights are saving us some money, I have no desire to change the streetlight fee. In fact, I'd like to reiterate my comments about streetlight fees shouldn't be on the water bill. If I don't pay my water bill, my water gets turned off, but my streetlights will stay on. If I live on a street that has no streetlights, I'm still paying a streetlight fee. If I live on a street that has lots of streetlights, I'm still paying the streetlight fee, regardless of those that don't have them. I don't think that should be on our water bill. So I would like to see that taken off of there. But until then, I would have no desire to increase the streetlight fee.
Councilmember McConaughey. Oh, excuse me, Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Justin, I got to ask the question with Jordan Landing. Did they install the lights with the steel bolts and did it put the wire in conduit? I mean, how did that happen?
That was all part of the development project. That wasn't a city project, that was Billsburg development.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing I wanted to just state is I am concerned that we're going to receive a rebate check from Rocky Mountain Power, and we're saving $180,000 a year by going to streetlights. So to me, there is an advantage, and I recognize that we have some dark areas in the city. And again, I'll take responsibility for having a 5-year plan. I think having a plan in place is a good thing when costs incur, primarily with water. But I am hesitant to raise rates when we're receiving a rebate and we're having some savings. And if there's a way we can spread this out and use that savings, even though we might need $250,000 a year, where we can maybe use the $240,000 that we receive from Rocky Mountain Power, and then work out the $180,000 in savings per year, at least identifying dark neighborhoods, whether that's 13th West or whether it's 70th South, and let's work on that first. Is my feeling.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be relatively brief. First of all, since there's no change recommended for July 1st, I don't think we actually have to do anything with this one tonight, so if we don't finish the conversation now, that's perfectly fine. I like the idea of going to January 1st. As far as the increase in the fee for the streetlights, personally, this is something I would like to see, not necessarily the amount that's been proposed, but I would like to see a small increase there, primarily because I'd like to see us continuing to act on where we've already started. In conversation with some of the council members prior to tonight's meeting, there was concern shared of, well, how is this going to look if we're getting a big check and then we're telling people, now we're going to raise your rates? Well, that's only part of the conversation. We issued what was a $7 million bond a couple of years ago, and much of that was used for street lighting. We made a substantial investment in the street lighting, which we still need to pay back. But that didn't cover everything. There's still a lot of work left to be done. Yes, we are saving, and we can put that savings towards further investment and further savings, but I would like to grow the amount of investment rather than have it just at that savings to see some additional investment in smart energy and increasing the light in the dark areas of our city. I think that will also help with crime. We talk about how we don't feel like the city shows well, as the phrase has been used. I think that would help with that, and I would like to see that investment continue. Additionally, in prior years, I've spoken with staff to ask how can we get additional streetlights added. The response was, well, the streetlight fee basically only covers electricity. Since then, we've added staff that are paid out of the streetlight fee to help maintain what's out there, and we're already using some of the savings to help pay for those positions. So I question how much more can be done where we've already spent some of the savings. We do have more that we can spend, but seeing over $300,000 just for the one project out at Jordan Landing, and then driving some of the other streets, as you drive down 13th West, 2700, 2200, 32, and especially in District 1 where I live, so I notice it very frequently there. There are a lot of lights that have not been upgraded, and it's my understanding that it's because they're owned by Rocky Mountain Power because they're ancient. We have to work out something with them to either acquire the lights or buy the lights from them. I want to make sure that as we move forward, we have a funding source to do that. I don't want to get an agreement with Rocky Mountain Power and then say, okay, great, we've got to wait 10 months for you. Or if we wait till January, I mean, we could be waiting 18 months before we have a funding source to take any additional action that's necessary. So I would be in favor of seeing a minor increase in January 1st just to continue the efforts that we have on investing in LEDs and LED lighting and city beautification, rather than seeing no increase. But again, I'm not in favor of anything happening in July. I would be fine waiting until January 1st. So I just wanted to share my thoughts. So we've got plenty of time to think about it from that perspective prior to when we have to finalize rates for January 1st. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. Can we back up one slide to the status quo? Whoever's got the, oh, maybe it wasn't back.
There we go.
Thank you. This slide does show a nice big cash reserve, but the problem I have with these two slides is they're not apples to apples. Is one of them has a big increase in expenses and a big increase in revenues. This one has no increase in expenses or a small increase in expenses and no increase in revenues on a rate basis. So I think somewhere in between is probably the right answer. Again, I'm in favor of a 5-year plan because, again, I think planning for the future is kind of a smart thing to do, rather than having to take large, immediate, reactionary stances to make up for it. So I'm in favor of a future plan of some kind, but I think we need to decide possibly first, what our long-term goal is. We need to set a policy whether our long-term goal is to buy lights from Rocky Mountain Power and upgrade those lights. We need to make those decisions before we make the decisions on, well, we can either raise the rates or not raise the rates, and raise expenses or not raise expenses. We need to decide what our goal is. What's our goal for the number of streetlights that we have, or the frequency of streetlights that we have? What's our goal for the overall lighting plan of the public roads in the city? Those are the decisions I would like to see made first. Again, this graph is not really in the red on the status quo, so I don't feel the pressure to work on this one that's immediately as we do the water. So I'm okay with the status quo for this one for tonight, but I do think we need to have the conversation as to what our policy is going to be regarding streetlights. And I agree with much of what Councilmember Burton said. It doesn't make sense to have this as an enterprise fund, because if you don't pay it, your streetlights won't turn off. That absolutely makes sense to me. It would absolutely make sense for this to be a general fund item. For that very reason. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more with my colleague, Councilmember Jacob, that we don't need to do anything, especially as, if my math is correct, and I believe it is, with the $240,000 check we get next council meeting and $177,000 we save this next calendar year, we have $417,000 without changing that line at all to add streetlights to the dark areas in our city. That's a considerable amount of streetlights replaced, repaired, or installed. And so I couldn't agree more. With that, I'll make a motion that we deny the 5-year plan for streetlights at this time and revisit at a later time. Councilmember Connie.
Thank you, Mayor.
There was a second.
Second for discussion.
A motion by Mayor Rolfe and a second by Councilmember Jacob. Discussion of the motion. Councilmember Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. I was trying to figure out how to get out the thought as part of the second or potential second that I would be willing to second it or now support the motion. I'm just wondering if there needs to be something in the motion to say that we will still plan on making rate changes, if necessary, effective January 1. So even if the rate change is 0 on January 1, at least it's on the same cycle with everything else. So my question is, does that change in the rate cycle need to be included in the motion to be able to keep it with everything else, or does it?
Actually, it can be revisited 26 times a year. Anytime the council wants to revisit it, but the point I want to make is we're saving $177,000 a year. So after the $417 I just described, we can still leave that line pretty well flat lines within green and continue to spend $177,000 every year after the $417,000 without changing the rate at all. But should the council want to change next week, it can be put on next week.
I would be supportive of the motion, but just know between now and then I'll be lobbying members of the council because I'd like to see us spend a little bit more than that savings to work to improve the city faster.
Let's vote.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey. Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe.
Yes.
Councilmember Burton.
Yes.
Vote passes 6 in favor.
Discussion, business item. 8F, discussion and possible action regarding Pioneer District EDA regarding possible future land use map amendments. Scott.
Thanks, Mayor. This is a pretty big deal. This property, this discussion will involve about 10% of the land area of West Jordan. The purpose of this discussion item tonight is just to, I guess, start the discussion. We don't need any specific direction tonight necessarily. However, got just a couple slides, and hopefully all of you have received this. It was included in your packet. These are maps. These will hopefully be a little clearer to read, but they go along with the corresponding slides. Just to refresh some of the council's memory and the public here, last July the council approved the Pioneer Technology District EDA, or Economic Development Area. It's basically 1,600 acres on the southwest corner of the city. You can see that area on the slide. To support that EDA, last October the council adopted a temporary land use ordinance preventing any rezoning or land use changes within that boundary. Given the magnitude of the area, coupled with some council turnover, staff turnover, the council adopted ordinance 1715 on March 22nd to extend that temporary land use ordinance until July 13th of this year. So, again, the discussion item before you tonight is just to get the ball rolling. We've got some time to contemplate some of the proposals, and as long as we can address any potential changes before July 13th, we're fine. So, with that, I've provided copies of the current land use map to you. Just a couple things to point out prior to the discussion from the council. On the map, I just want to again reiterate, so the area in purple is the actual EDA boundary. We decided to expand the study area slightly larger than the EDA just to provide context and interface between potential changes in the EDA. So, in addition to that, we also overlaid the culinary water pressure zone, which is in this blue hatch that doesn't show up too well on this screen. Hopefully on your individual monitors you can see that. The city currently does not have water services to pressure zone 7, and so we wanted to put that out as pertinent information to the council as we're contemplating changes to the land use. A couple other things, planning staff met with our capital facilities group. We looked at our long-term plans. We revamped a few of the master transportation routes, as well as potential areas needed for, I'll go to option number 1 here, regional detention ponds, areas for future water tanks. So you'll notice that on option 1, 2, and 3, the light blue, which is kind of the public facilities, are going to be pretty consistent because those are based on specific elevations and engineering that goes along with the water system. One last thing that the council should consider, and which staff considered as well when considering these options, which you don't have a copy, and we can certainly get this to you even as soon as tomorrow, is the contours. If you're familiar with that area of town, it starts to slope up pretty dramatically. Now, for example, the Facebook site that was in play, this 230 acres, it does have a pretty significant grade to it. However, it was fairly flat, meaning it didn't have a lot of undulating or rolling hills, which is pretty good for larger industrial development. For U111 going west, the topography really jumps dramatically right from the road, and then it flattens out a little bit. However, if you go up there, you can see by these squiggly lines, there's a lot of undulation, which you have to do quite a bit of earthwork in order to get larger pad sites for industrial development. And so if you were to look at our current land use map, that takes into consideration the challenging topography, and we, the current map anticipates larger state housing up along the west bench in that area. So, I forgot one last bit of pertinent information. If you look at the current land use map, this is 90 south along the north boundary. This is Backus Highway. So this square and this area right here, that already is zoned for specific development. There's no pending applications, but I just bring that to the council's attention because as we play around with different scenarios of changing land use, even though we do as a city have authority to go and change the land use in that area, it would just be more challenging than the rest of this large area that it's just, it's A20 is the zoning on it, which is just a general placeholder at this point. So we would be fighting the current area if we were to change anything in this quadrant. But with that, I'm excited to hear what council thinks. Again, we've got until July to really make any real formal decisions. Process moving forward is to get direction from the council. Once we have that, we'll take it through the formal public hearing process, do all the noticing, and take it to the planning commission and then back to council for formal action. With that, I'm happy to answer any specific questions regarding the various options that we've thrown out there, but they're mainly as a starting point for discussion.
Councilmember Burke. Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to say thank you, Scott. This is fantastic. You're going to be hearing from us, I'm sure. This is a good starting point. I'm glad to see this. I think we've got some great opportunities here. I like the idea that you talked about with the contours on the west side of U-111. I think would be much better for residential than commercial, because having that steepness there makes us look over the next one and see across the valley. And I think there's some good uses for that. And in the more flat areas, although it's still slopes, we call it smooth for the commercial. So I think you've got some variation on the right line, and I think that's you'll be hearing from us. Let's keep working on this. Thank you.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. Scott, I was wondering if you could go through just the three different proposals and just hit the highlights of what the differences are of the three, rather than us flipping through them and trying to see, well, this part is gray on this one and blue on this one. So, you know what I mean? If you just hit the highlights as far as the major differences between the three, that would be helpful, I think.
So again, we've got the current land use map. Option number one basically fills in this triangle from New Bingham Highway down to Old Bingham Highway and back up to Backus, and then leads across the road into the existing, there's a gravel pit in that area. This is fairly conducive to larger industrial development, given the topography and lack of other residential areas that would really be in opposition to that. Option two, and again, we've got a map that has all these side by side, so you can take a look at it in context. But option two just expands that industrial up to New Bingham Highway, uses New Bingham Highway as the dividing line. Now, this Ivory development here that went in, or that approval happened several years ago in conjunction kind of with this Wilshire apartment complex. That's sort of a challenge for us, I'll put it that way. There are a lot of people moving into that neighborhood. They're isolated, they're surrounded, Cisco is their neighbor basically. So as we worked with the Capital Facilities Group, we knew that there was a need for a regional detention pond. There was already on the general plan earmarked for a park, so we figured that we could kill two birds with one stone, move that regional detention pond and slash park next to this newer subdivision, and try to provide a little bit better living atmosphere for those residents, and then provide a new spot for another water tank. We already have one in that area. We have a need for another tank for that pressure zone. So that's option 2. Option 3, we expand that industrial area all the way up to this alignment here. We straighten out the master. This is the collector road. Again, using that as the transition. And to move this industrial any further to the north, we're getting to some challenging slopes. So since this was a natural break on a transportation master plan, we just ended it there. And that's pretty much it. Those are the various options. I don't expect the council to adopt any one particular option. These are just starting points for discussion. So,
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. Very much appreciate the efforts and time that's gone into that. I would love to discuss this much more in depth when we have that joint meeting with the Planning Commission coming up at the end of May. I think getting all of us in the same room, I think this would be a really, really good item. This is a big portion of our city, and I'd love to have as many minds working on it as possible simultaneously. The other thought is, at least personally, I would love to see some sort of option for something kind of like what they have in South Jordan as you come down across from the South Jordan Parkway, right by the Jordan River, where you've got the complex of professional office right there. Out on that west bench, I think we've got a prime opportunity for something kind of like what they have up over by Research Park by the University of Utah. I know I used to frequently go up to the Huntsman offices that are kind of up on that hillside and overlook the entire valley. I would love to see us incorporate something like that. I know that we have a long history with industrial. I believe there's still a place for that, but I'd like to see us look at some of the other options as well, specifically some of that commercial office space. So, thank you.
Scott, it's my opinion that I agree with you that everything north of New Bingham Highway on the west side of U-111 should probably remain low density residential, because that's, again, some of the best real estate in the city. But I think that everything east up to 90th of U-111, because we are the only city in the entire state that can offer a 10% discount in economic development, we need to retain the rest of that. I do applaud you for putting that was a big mistake. I don't know, happened, like you said, several years ago to allow housing into this area. But putting a park as a buffer is brilliant. So moving that water detention pond there and making a park out of it is brilliant. But the facts are, to the east, they have neighbors that are industrial, and they will have to the south, and they will have to the, I believe, to the west, industrial uses. And I believe, I didn't understand why you thought that from 90th south along U-111 to the east side should be preserved in the former zoning, because we're giving up a lot to offer businesses that are looking for incentive by taking that whole chunk out. So that, again, we're not, I just wanted to, I think that the west of U-111, north of New Bingham, should remain residential. But everything east of U-111 to 90th, with the exception of what's already built, we should keep that, because we are the only game in all of Utah with that 10% discount. So that's just, if we can talk about that, keep that in the queue. Thank you. Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. Scott, if you could pull up option 3, just go forward one more map. I like this one the best, but I agree with what's been said about the hillside on the extreme west end needs to remain residential. Estate lots with some kind of buffer between those in the industrial space. And Councilmember McConaughey's office park idea is just about right. As the buffer between the big houses on the hill and the industrial use areas. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. And I would like to see the light industrial go a little further north, like the mayor said. Even further north than this, it can go all the way up to 90th. And the residential that's on here, as far as it's straight north of the Ivory development, there, the tan area, on this, could probably stay residential because you have the neighbors to the east of that as well. So as far as the residential component, right there, and then up against the hillside, a nice office park development on the foothills of that, the lower slopes of that, and then, between Bacchus and Mountain View, you need to maximize. And the professional office area is economic development potential as well, as far as the EDA goes and the incentives that we can offer. So, I think we're getting really close on a lot of these, and I like a lot of the comments that have been said. Thank you.
That's the only action we need tonight on this.
Somebody clicked on.
Yeah. It's still on.
It's still on. It's still working.
You should start
Okay.
Our final item then will be back to consent item D. Councilmember Jacobs, who had his item.
Yeah, and I mentioned this, I brought this up with park staff before, but I just believe $187,000 for a bathroom is a lot of money, and I don't know what can be done, but I would think that the standard government cliche of $30,000 for a toilet seat is awfully applicable right here. And I would like to see this either rebid in a different way, maybe contact a home builder, see if they're willing to bid on it. I don't know who. I'd just like to see a rebid. I think $187,000 for a bathroom facility in the park is just way too much.
So the proposal is to direct staff to cancel all bids and rebuild the project?
Yeah, I was going to leave it open for discussion, but I'll go ahead and make a motion to cancel the bid and put it out for a rebid with the hopefully lower target price.
I will second that. We have a motion by, let's see, we just need direction. We don't need it.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't do anything, it's not passed.
All in favor of the proposal
Reject.
direction? Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to suggest that it looks like Jim Whiting was the one from staff who was working on this, and since he's here, perhaps he could offer some insight before a decision is made.
That'd be appropriate. Jim?
Mayor and council, appreciate the opportunity. As especially the mayor probably is aware, the bidding climate right now is for people wanting to build things is terrible. Even to look at what we've experienced on the Public Works building, where they had subcontractors, one particular subcontractor would submit a bid when they were expecting 5 or 6. I attended another meeting last night where somebody was talking about a $5 million project where they only got one bidder on it, and it was $1.5 million more than a very same exact project from a year earlier. That everybody out there in the climate right now is really busy, and Brian just told me this was over $300 a foot, which is really high. I mean, when we built the concession stand and restrooms at the rodeo arena, that was at about $200,000 10 years ago. So this is a much smaller building than what that was even, and that had more amenities that the concession stand does in it. So from my standpoint, I would like to see this postponed. I don't know that rebidding it now is going to be of any benefit to the city. And Brian would have to address this, but we'd have a better chance of a better price to the city if we even waited till like January. So Brian can answer that better than I could.
we can rebid and just wait till we see what the bid climate is around January. And go from there. It's bond money, so I was trying to get all the projects done, get the bond money projects completed, but it is hard, I understand that.
I guess the question would be, would the funds still be available in January then?
We're running against the timeline too with the bond money. We're overdue, so I'm trying to get all these projects going and get them knocked out.
But we got other projects in the queue that can fill the slot.
Oh, yeah. I'm working on about 17 projects right now.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor. So two thoughts. Number one for Jim, or questions. On the bid/quote tabulation form, it just has the one bidder. I assume that this was only one respondent then?
One bidder.
Okay. And then the other thought is, I know we have a lot of youth athletics that happen out there, especially over the summer. I don't want to necessarily bring up the idea of portable restrooms or something for them, but do we need to take consideration about other alternatives, or have they historically had restrooms out there?
The good thing right now is the park will be closed at the end of May because they're going to go and lower that basin. So I was going to start this project in sequence with that, so it's all done at the first of the year and ready to go. If we open up and we'll still have the bathrooms because I don't tear them down until we get the okay to build them. So.
When, the question, I guess, for Brian is, and maybe Justin knows too, is when this park would be available again for use after they lower the basin?
Probably fall of 18 or spring of 19 once the turf establishes.
Okay, so that means that this could be rebuilt and the whole park could be a brand new park.
It could be a brand new park, because we've already replaced both the buildings, the playground, the bathrooms, the only dilapidated structure left there, so. Whatever else you got,
But we all know that the bidding climate is much better in January and February. And we certainly don't need to get it done, especially since it's getting close to next month. We probably allow staff to have a big bid more opportunity.
Thank you.
Just make that direction.
Yes, I would give that direction to staff to rebuild the figure is going to be the most advantageous, and just go from there. I don't think we need a vote on that. If we do want to spend $175,000, I would propose getting Agri Homes to build a 3-bedroom house and make it a really nice park.
Anyone opposed to Councilmember Jacobs? Okay, make it so. We will, item 10 is moving to a closed session and adjourning from there for the discussion of character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual, strategy sessions to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation, strategy sessions to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, including any form of water right or water share.
Mayor?
Yes.
I would ask how long is this scheduled to be?
I think it's going to be really short, maybe 10 minutes.
In that case, I would move that we proceed as you stated, for the reasons stated, and then adjourn from there.
We have a motion by Councilmember McConaughey, a second by Councilmember Jacob. Discussion of the motion. Seeing none, let's vote.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey?
Aye.
Councilmember